What's going on, fellow A-Plusers? It's your host, Adam Perez. Welcome to a brand new episode of A-Plus Hero Report. We got 6 incredible main topics for you guys we're going to be breaking down today, as we got some Star Wars movie news, as we have ourselves a brand new announcement this week. We even have some DCU casting information when it comes to the upcoming Supergirl film, along with the Ghostbusters preview and so much more, guys. So sit back, stay warm, and we'll see you on the other side. What's going on, y'all? Happy Sunday afternoon, wherever you're certainly watching us from. It's certainly good to see each and every one of you here. Thank you so much for joining us for a brand new episode of A-Plus Hero Report, your weekly stop for your Marvel, DC television, and movie news, as we're streaming live for you guys today over on YouTube. You can also catch us over on Facebook if you'd like to. And if you're over on Twitch, check us out over there as well. But we got my boy Stuart in the house with us today. My fellow co-host, what's going on, man? How is the Bay Area where you're at with all this crazy weather we're kind of experiencing across this country right now? Did I lose you, Stuart? Are you there, buddy?
Oh, am I still here?
Can you see me? I got you.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I just noticed that I think my might have popped out. It says on my computer that I'm running on Wi-Fi, so I'll have to fix that in just a moment. But yeah, no, the weather hasn't been anywhere near as bad here in San Francisco. We've just been getting like a lot of rain, but which is, pretty much good. It hasn't been really affecting my day in any way. How are things in Texas though? Because I hear like it's starting to freeze up and they're predicting some really bad, snow again, like in kind of the northern side of Texas.
Yeah. If my internet drops or it goes out, or if the connection isn't too strong, it probably is because of the weather out here. I even have my my cable connected, my Ethernet cable and everything, so I'm not on Wi-Fi, but it's still kind of dropping. I think it's because of the crazy temperatures that we're currently having right now. I don't even think we're gonna break 20 degrees today, Stuart. It's like
Wow.
yeah, it's about, I think it's supposed to be staying at about like 18, 19 degrees. Overnight we're supposed to get like a wintry mix, so probably ice, rain, maybe some snow as the morning kind of comes also into tomorrow. And it's supposed to be below freezing like today, tomorrow, and I think on Tuesday. And I don't think until Wednesday is when we actually get over 30 degrees, man. So it's Texas. But yeah, even this I think is pretty cold for us here, honestly. But I guess in the Bay Area, you probably don't get a lot of snow, huh?
Oh no, I don't think it ever snows here in the Bay Area. I wish though, because yeah, like I think I mentioned this before. My entire life, I can count on one hand the amount of snow days I've had.
Oh man,
my green screen was kind of like covering my finger, but yeah, just one. I've had one day of snow, like living in California my whole life.
Yeah, we got to get you out of that state for a little bit on a winter break or something like that, so you can experience snow again. Who do we got out here? We got Billy in the house. He says it's negative 30 degrees in my home state of Minnesota. Oh, wow. Ram Jam says we're under extreme cold weather, negative 30 in Calgary. Yeah, what's up? Datila certainly in the house with us today. Blossom has certainly joined us as well. Who else we got in here? We got Enrique Perez. He says, I saw the second trailer for DreamWorks animation film Orion in the Dark, the Netflix film. I don't think I've seen the trailer. I saw that the trailer's out, but I haven't checked it out for myself yet. Pixar Soul is now in theaters for the first time. Yeah, I feel like some movies due to the pandemic that didn't get their theatrical release are now sort of taking a swing at it. I did see like Across the Spider-Verse was even thinking about going back into theaters, but that was already in theaters if I'm not mistaken. But Pixar Soul, I definitely do think should be on the big screen. So if you haven't had the opportunity to check it out, certainly go ahead and do so.
It was Soul, and then there's another. I think it was Luca. I don't know if that was Pixar or just Disney, but yeah, that was like another one that deserved a theatrical release, but unfortunately never got it because of the pandemic.
Do you know if it is getting the opportunity to be in front of on the big screen yet, or no?
That I don't know.
Who else we got here? Marcelino. He says, "Hey guys, just started watching the '97 X-Men cartoon, and it's fine. I do think it's a tad overrated, and I plan on watching the X-Men cartoons to see if they're better." I would assume that you're talking about the classic 1990s X-Men film, not the X-Men cartoon, not the X-Men '97 Disney Plus show that's supposed to be dropping next year.
And be
But
like,
he's
whoa, can you hook us up with early access
Yeah, I
to
was about to
that?
say, how'd you get an early screening of that one? But yeah, he's talking about the original X-Men cartoon. I have not revisited them since I was a kid, but I used to watch that and the Spider-Man animated back to back. I think they were back to back on Fox Kids, but I used to love that show.
Same.
Really real quick, wrestling fans, Dottie says, did you know AEW wrestler Ray Phoenix is a spokesperson for Marvel for Echo? I did not know that. Datila actually went to a TNA wrestling event last night, Hard to Kill, if I'm not mistaken, the first of the 2024 season. I believe it was Impact Wrestling going back to their traditional roots of TNA wrestling, and they had a pretty big day last night. It's a pay-per-view I'm probably gonna have to check out, but if you guys have checked out the pay-per-view, let me know. But if you want recaps, videos of that event, definitely check out Datila's wrestling page, Rangers of Wrestling. And she'll put a bunch of content, I'm sure, of her time at the pay-per-view event. But we got something. What else, Stuart?
Oh yeah, just she mentions Echo. I was curious. Have you checked out? Have you checked out that series on Disney Plus yet?
So I have not checked out Echo yet. What I did was this week I went back and rewatched Hawkeye. Now people are telling me I don't have to watch Hawkeye because I guess Echo at the beginning will give you a recap. But I personally wanted to rewatch it. It's one that I wanted to go ahead and check back and see. I didn't mind the Echo stuff in Hawkeye. But I got to tell you, I think it's grown on me as a Christmas special. I think it's going to be one of those series that I watch every holiday. I really enjoyed seeing Clint Barton and Kate Bishop, and it hits differently for me watching it this time around, especially knowing what happened with Jeremy Renner recently with his accident and stuff. But I really love what they did with just Clint's story in general and building up sort of Kate Bishop as well. There's a lot of moving pieces in that series, I think, but I've come to appreciate it a little bit more in my second outing of watching Hawkeye. So I watched that this week, and now I'm going to go ahead and dive into Echo. Indy is going to be doing an Echo series review for us that should be up this weekend or at least on Monday. I know where he's at. His internet's been down due to the weather, but he will be dropping an Echo season review for the channel. Have you had the opportunity to check it out yourself?
So far just the first episode. And there's one shot in the first episode that was just so awesome. I just needed a rant about it real quick. Because basically it's Echo in a limo with Kingpin. And so if because this gets brought up in Hawkeye, Kingpin being the very manipulative asshole that he is trying to convince Echo, oh, the two of us are family. We take care of each other. He says all that. But there's one shot that really shows how much he doesn't actually mean it. And that is like him in the limo with Echo, because he's talking to her, but he's not using sign language. Instead, he hires someone else to basically use sign language for him. And then, same with sign language back, like she would talk to, Kingpin, like with what Echo was saying. And I thought that was like a brilliant way to show that he's willing to spend a lot of money to sell the illusion that he cares, but he's known Echo since she was like a little girl, right? And he's never once actually bothered to take the time to learn sign language to talk to her himself. And I think that's like a kind of a brilliant way to like show it. And that one shot right there of him saying, I can't, but not saying it in sign language, instead having someone else basically say that for her. I think like that one shot really shows like the awesome dynamic between Kingpin and Echo. So I just had a rant about how cool that was.
Yeah, no, I can totally see what you mean there. I gotta check it out for myself. Hopefully I get the opportunity to check it out this week. I think it's only like 5 episodes to the Echo series, so it should be pretty easy to binge. But if you guys haven't checked out Echo, please go ahead and do so on Disney Plus. And if you have, let us know us know your thoughts in the comment section box below, what you guys have thought of Echo so far as a series. Remember, guys, if you want to support the channel, hit that like button. It definitely does go a long way for us. If you want to share these videos, make clips of some of the content we talk about here, feel free to go ahead and pass this around. If you want to help us out monetarily, you could certainly do that as well. There is a super chat button along with the super sticker button. You can go ahead and donate to the channel if you'd like to. If you do go ahead and provide us with the super chat, we'll stop what we're doing. We'll bring your quote and comment up to the screen, and we'll highlight you and give you the recognition that you certainly deserve, and definitely talk about whatever topic that you have in mind. And again, if not, hitting that like button does certainly go a long way. But Stuart, let's go ahead and kick off this show, man, with our first segment of the day. Honorable mentions, y'all. These are our topics that didn't quite make the cut, but we felt that you certainly still deserve to at least know about it. So we'll go through some of these rather briefly for you. Stuart, do you happen to have any honorable mentions at all this week? Any movie recommendations, anything like that?
Unfortunately, not this week. But while you go over the honorable mentions, I'm just really quick gonna run out so I can plug in the Ethernet cord just to
Yeah, go for
make
it.
sure my connection is better.
No, I got you. I got you. And again, guys, if our internet does drop or it gets kind of low here, I do have my Ethernet cable connected, but I think due to the terrible freezing temperatures outside, it's probably throwing some of the connection off from time to time. So while Stuart does that, I'll wait for him to certainly come back. One thing I will bring up that dropped yesterday evening, I believe, if you guys are fans of the Fear Street books or the Fear Street franchise, you guys will recall we actually did get ourselves a trilogy of Fear Street movies over on Netflix. I highly recommend them. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I just thought they were going to be just child books with barely any horror or anything like that involved, or not very compelling of a story. But I was honestly fooled. I definitely was kind of surprised with the Fear Street movies. But they did announce that there is a new Fear Street movie that's currently in the works over at Netflix. Whether it's going to be another trilogy, who certainly knows, but they do have plans on doing more Fear Street movies. We also wind up this week getting ourselves a brand new trailer for Halo Season 2. I believe Indy was doing the review for Halo for our channel, but we do in fact have a season 2 that's going to be dropping February 8th of this year. So if you haven't had the opportunity to check it out, it is currently on Paramount Plus, the first season, and then season 2 is going to be right around the corner. I believe Stuart is back. Stuart, did you ever see the first season of Halo? Did you check it out at all?
I did not. That
No?
was weird. My screen just randomly shut off, but it's back on now. No, I haven't seen the first season of Halo, but it is a show that I've heard. I don't think I've heard any more mixed reviews or anything like I have with Halo, because I hear from a lot of fans that this like completely disrespects the franchise, and it's like an abomination to television, things like that. But then I hear to like, casual Halo fans, like, so not like hardcore ones, but just people that play the game casually. They're like, no, it doesn't ruin the show or ruin the games. It's totally fine. It's its own thing. And yeah, just from what I've seen, it looks okay. Pretty, not the best CG is all I'll say, like in terms of like what I've seen from the trailers and stuff. But other than that, it doesn't look that bad. Just doesn't look like a show that I'm currently interested in checking out.
No, I get you. I kind of get the same vibes here too. I was kind of surprised of the Master Chief face reveal. I think some people were kind of bummed a little bit about that. But I think at the same time too, I can understand the decision that was made in the sense of like, how do you carry an entire show without somebody showing their face the entire time? I think you probably could have pulled it off, but we'll see what happens there. And I find myself very much as one of those casual Halo gamers sort of thing. Like I've played the games before, but I've never really been fully thrusted into the lore and things like that. So I don't think I've checked out season 1. I might have watched maybe the first 2 episodes, and then I eventually just never went back. But the trailer itself for season 2 looks pretty good. So I would highly recommend that you guys check it out. Another trailer that was dropped this week that really piqued my interest here, Masters of the Universe Revolution. This is, in fact, a sequel to the Kevin Smith Revelations that we wind up getting from Netflix last year or the year before, perhaps. But it's back. And we got ourselves a brand new trailer here this week. Is this one that you happen to stumble across at all, Stuart? Or if not, did you check out the first season?
Haven't checked out the trailer for the new season, but I absolutely loved the first season, and I love the way the show pisses off people I don't like. So I'm definitely going to be checking this series out. I think like genuinely one of the funniest things I ever saw, like while browsing the internet, was I can't even remember the YouTuber's name or anything, but I know that it was like a podcast type format. But this one woman goes on a rant about how all the women in the show are like muscular, and so she's like, why can't I just have female characters that look more like me? And I'm just like, you mean like every other animated show out there? I mean, there you got a lot of options. This is just one where they decide to give some muscles on them, but you got plenty of other shows where, if that's what you're looking for, if you're looking for a show where women don't have muscles, you got plenty out there. Sorry if a show about space barbarians needs to have some muscles on it, you know?
Yeah, don't tell her about like a Red Sonja or anything like that in the future, like
Exactly.
yeah, so I checked out the trailer. The trailer looks fire, if you ask me. The trailer is great. Leave it to Kevin Smith to add some great 80s music soundtrack to it as well. It's got the You're the Best, I believe, from the
Oh,
Karate
that's
Kid,
awesome.
the Karate Kid soundtrack in here, and it works so incredibly well. I was blown away by the animation from Revelations, and so that it comes back here for Revolution. They got some really great He-Man and Skeletor designs in here also, and it finds really Prince Adam, now that his father has passed away, him sort of now being challenged to step up to the throne and become king. And they're sort of forcing him at this point to have to sit on the throne as He-Man or as Prince Adam, saying that, look, you can only sort of choose one sort of thing. You can't have both. And so this is going to be a really interesting, I think, internal struggle here for Prince Adam, as Skeletor is trying to, up to his shenanigans again, as always, some sort of evil plot and plan. So I am interested in the direction in which they're going to go. I believe Sarah Michelle Gellar is out as Tila this time around, and they have officially cast Melissa Benoist, who played
Ooh.
Supergirl. She's going to be doing the voice work for Tila in here. But this trailer looks bomb. I'm just let you right now. If you have not had that opportunity to check it out, even if you weren't a fan of Revelations, I would check out the trailer for Revolution just to see what it looks like. But it looked pretty stunning to me, and one that I'm looking forward to. I don't think I finished Revelations. I think I did the first part, but I never finished the second part. So I will be finishing it though before January 25th, because I definitely want to check this out. And I really hope that Kevin Smith has more He-Man up his sleeve after this one, honestly.
Yeah. I didn't realize that Melissa Benoist was joining the show. So now you got both her and her husband voicing Tila and He-Man. That's cool.
Yeah, definitely go ahead and check that out. I'm trying to see if there's any other last minute things I wanted to bring up. Oh, yes. Daredevil Born Again, Stuart. I had to bring this up because there is a report going around right now, and I'm going to go ahead and believe this one. There's a report from the industry insider Jeff Snyder, that let us know that Deborah Ann Wool and Eldon Henson are set to reprise their roles as Karen Page and Foggy Nelson in Born Again. If you guys recall, initially when they were writing Born Again, those two characters were not in this at all, and Daredevil fans were upset, to say the least. It's one of those things where it's just like, how do you continue on with the Daredevil series and you don't have like two of his strongest supporting characters in the series? But since they have in fact stopped production, they have not been happy with Daredevil Born Again. They have gone back to the well of writing the series again, before getting back in front of the cameras. And so, according to Jeff Snyder, again, this is not being confirmed, I don't believe, by Marvel Studios or Disney, but Jeff Snyder is usually pretty good about this stuff. He is in fact reporting that Karen Page and Foggy Nelson will be back and played by their same actors that played them in the Daredevil Netflix series. So maybe Stuart, this is Disney recognizing, hey guys, we effed up big time here.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this before, but man, a part of me is really curious to see like what that first 2 or 3 episodes that they filmed looks like. Like, what was so bad about
What
it
was
that
so bad
made
about it?
that made the same company that looked at a Secret Invasion and they went, "This is okay." And I'm curious what made them go, "That's good," but what was so bad about Daredevil Reborn or Born Again that they didn't want to air that. I'm very, very curious, but I am glad
Yeah.
though things turned out the way they did because yeah, I do think the way they were gonna, if this is true, which again this was a rumor, so I don't know if this is true or not, but supposedly they were gonna kill off Karen and Foggy off screen,
Mm.
and that's where the show would have picked up.
Oh,
I am really glad that's not the case. That's not what they're going with this time. And yeah, I heard similar reports too, in the sense that Daredevil Born Again is basically a reboot, but only in name. Essentially, it like now they want to try to treat this as Daredevil season 4. Again, rumor, don't because even the person I saw who reported that said that this just came from an outside source, so they don't know if it's true or not. But my fingers are crossed. I'm hoping it's
yeah.
true.
The showrunners of the original Daredevil Netflix series did come out and were complaining about it because they to them they were saying that this was just a way for Disney to not pay the previous creators for their
Oh.
work on Netflix. So the idea is, hey, we make it a new title, we call it a new show, but we just sort of pick up where we kind of left off sort of mentality, which is a big F you if you ask me. But again, it
Mhm.
shows you how corporations and things like that work behind the scenes to just cut costs in any way that they can. You know what I mean? And again, this was very much before sort of the writer strike and the actor strike and stuff. When we started learning how some of the shortcuts of how some of these streaming services, didn't if they didn't want to pay writers, they would cancel their show or pull their show off their streaming service, right? So this feels like it was very much sort of in line with that same sort of mentality of, hey, if we just make a brand new show, in turn, we maybe don't necessarily have to pay the people that came before us or gave them the recognition from all that they did before, sort of thing. So I do wonder if that's part of it as well. But we'll see. But I am appreciative, at least, of Marvel noticing and realizing their faults and making the necessary changes. And so we'll see how Daredevil Born Again certainly fares when the time is right. And one last honorable mention in here, because last week I think we talked about the How to Train Your Dragon live action movie. Well, we have another casting announcement. Last week we talked about Gerard Butler being cast. Well, this week they have officially cast Nick Frost as one of the Vikings. Now, Nick Frost, for you guys who don't know, I mostly know him from the Edgar Wright trilogy stuff, from like Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, was the World's End and things like that. Nick Frost, usually opposite Simon Pegg sort of thing. He's going to be playing one of the Vikings in How to Train Your Dragon, and I honestly think it's just great casting choice, honestly, if you ask me.
I think I said Nick Frost last week when we were talking
I
about
think
like
you
kind of
did.
different like Viking builds that I wanted to see, in terms
Yes.
of like, yeah, I thought Nick Frost would have been perfect because he's athletic, but he's also heavy set. Awesome.
Yeah, let me bring this up. This is from our YouTube page. That's the character that he's gonna be playing.
Yes.
Isn't that
Oh, that's so
perfect?
perfect.
It's
Yes.
so perfect for him. That's so perfect for him. So yeah, Nick Frost is going to be in How to Train Your Dragon. So good stuff, man, in regards to some honorable mentions. But yeah, guys, if you have any thoughts in regards to some of those honorable mentions, definitely go ahead and let me know. Let me check the comments here and see if anybody had anything else to say.
I'm going to be
What you
right
got?
back. I just got to refresh the page because I'm noticing some lag. I think if I refresh it, it should be fine though. So I'll
Okay,
be right
no
back.
problem. Yeah, go right ahead. Enrique Perez, did you watch the teaser trailer for the upcoming Thunderman's Return film of 2024? I have not heard of Thunderman's Return or Thunderman's film. So thank you for the heads up. If anything, maybe after the show, I'll go ahead and check it out. Marcelino says, I never played Halo and I don't even know what the story is in the games, but from what I saw from the show, it's just boring. I think after watching the first 2 episodes for myself, I think that's pretty much why I never went back. I think the pacing was a little bit too slow. It kind of dragged for me at times, so I didn't really care for it as much. And he also says, I'm not sure if I'll watch Masters of the Universe Revolution since I didn't like Revelations. Kevin Smith rushed things. He didn't want to take his time to slowly build up this world. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's just his storytelling for that animated series. I feel like he had been working on this for quite some time before it was revealed. So I don't feel like he was rushed to put out the content or anything like that. Maybe that was just his choice of pacing for an animated series. Because this, I think, was his first animated series that he's done, right, Stuart?
It is, yeah, and I don't know. I didn't think it was rushed. I think like what happened is Netflix said, "Hey, we'll give you 8 episodes," so we had to tell a complete story in that 8 episodes. Or I think it was 8. I forgot how many episodes season 1 had, but regardless, it's usually not the writers who decide how many episodes they have to tell their story. And so I think like with Kevin Smith, he just wanted to make the most out of that 8 episodes, and that's why it might have felt rushed.
I got you. And real quick before we get into our main topics, I do have a movie review that's going to be dropping. If not today, then on Monday. I reviewed a Netflix film by the name of Society of the Snow. It is currently up on Netflix. It's in the top 10 movies as of right now. I believe it's an international film from Spain, but it highlights a 1972 airplane crash, a Uruguayan airplane crash of a rugby team stuck in the Andes Mountains. They wind up making a film about this in 1993 titled Alive. I think you might have heard that story before, but this one is a retelling of it, if you will, now using, with permission of the deceased family members and the survivors of that crash, actually using their real names and really talking more about, it's very much an ensemble cast, kind of talking about the rugby team as a whole sort of thing. So went ahead and checked out Society of the Snow on Netflix. I highly recommend it. I'm going to be dropping my review for it here later on today or tomorrow. But besides that, I'm ready for some NFL playoff football, baby. We got 2 games today and then 2 games tomorrow. So get ready, y'all, for some football playoffs. Best time of the season, if you ask me. All right, Stuart, are you ready to get into these main topics with me?
Always.
Let's do this, y'all. So, main topic number 1, we're going to be diving into one of my favorite fandoms, and that is, in fact, Star Wars. We got some big Star Wars news here this past week. If you guys recall, Kathleen Kennedy officially announced, I think back in 2023 or the previous year at a Star Wars celebration, that we were going to be getting ourselves 3 new movies. We have the James Mangold sort of Dawn of the Jedi movie headed our way. We've got a Dave Filoni movie that's going to be really sort of, I don't want to say ending, but sort of wrapping up the story of maybe Ahsoka and the Mandalorian and sort of like a big event film, if you will. And then the third one is, in fact, the Rey Skywalker film that's going to be taking place 15 years after the events of Rise of the Skywalker. So as Star Wars fans, I think we're definitely eager for all 3 of those films, but I was not expecting, Stuart, this week that they officially announced a 4th film, and this 4th film, Stuart, is actually going to be coming before any of those other films that we're going to be getting as well. And this film, ladies and gentlemen, is The Mandalorian and Grogu. That's right. Mando and Grogu are officially getting their own movie. So let's go ahead and dive into this news, Stuart. This one actually comes to us. I saw it on StarWars.com with the official announcement here. But it says The Mandalorian and Grogu journeys to the big screen. Let's get some more details. It says they're embarking on a new adventure to movie theaters. It's going to be directed by Jon Favreau, produced by Favreau as well, Kathleen Kennedy and Dave Filoni, and The Mandalorian and Grogu will go into production this year. So this is not going to be far off at all. They're going to be getting in front of the cameras here relatively soon. So production will begin this year, which will in turn now make it sort of the leading film out of the other 3 films that were previously announced. This is from Jon Favreau. He says, I have loved telling stories set in the rich world that George Lucas created. The prospect of bringing the Mandalorian and his apprentice Grogu to the big screen is extremely exciting. Jon Favreau, this is from Kathleen Kennedy. She says Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have ushered into Star Wars two new and beloved characters, and this new story is a perfect fit for the big screen, is what Kathleen Kennedy wind up saying. The Mandalorian and Grogu will lead Lucasfilm's ongoing feature development slate, including the films helmed by Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, James Mangold, and Dave Filoni. And mind you, they throw in this little nugget here of information at the end, who is also currently developing Ahsoka season 2 among those in the works. So Dave Filoni is also creating a second season of Ahsoka. So we'll be able to see Rosario Dawson and Natasha Bordizzo back once again for Ahsoka season 2. But the main topic here, Stuart, being that the Mandalorian and Grogu are officially getting their own movie. Now, there probably are some unanswered questions that some people might have in regards to this, like who's writing it, how did this decision come to be? I'm going to go ahead and bring up another screen here for you guys that might give us some insight, because the Hollywood Reporter shed a little bit more light in one of their most recent newsletters titled Heat Vision. And they go on to say, let's see here. It says, all good questions, and here's what we know. Pre-strikes, Lucasfilm was intent on making season 4 of The Mandalorian. The scripts had all been written. During the great Hollywood break, is what they're referring to, the strike period now, I guess, things got reevaluated, with plans shifting to the movie as the priority. What happens season 4 is now unclear. It's definitely not a given. If the movie is a success, it could lead to the next phase of Mando storytelling becoming movie sequels. Box office and fan reactions would determine that. Sources say that Filoni's own movie is still on track at this point, although it is due to come after season 2 of Ahsoka, whenever that will be. The good news here for the movie fans, at least, is that audiences will have their first Jon Favreau directed big screen film since his Lion King remake. Favreau is not only directing the feature, but according to sources, he is writing the script with Filoni. So it looks like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are writing it, with Jon Favreau being the director of it as well. So if anything, that was probably one of my big questions, was very much the idea of like, hey, if we are getting this Mandalorian movie, where does that necessarily leave season 4? And will we get a season 4, or is this going to be in place of it? So let me throw this over to you first, Stuart. I know you're a big Star Wars fan also. What's your excitement level of this? And do you find this as a good strategy, a good move, especially coming into a season 4 of Mando? Anything you're expecting? How did you take this announcement?
I think this is kind of exciting, but I also kind of get why they're doing this before they do the big, I guess I could call it the crossover movie, because I know that at one point, there, like you mentioned in the beginning of the article, there was a movie that was supposed to involve the Mandalorian along with Ahsoka that was going to be coming to theaters. And so I think it's kind of smart to play it safe with just having the Mandalorian, just having this one first, just to see how it does. And if it does really successful, then that movies based on the Star Wars television kind of side of things actually can work. So I think this is a good move on them. Definitely excited to see the Mandalorian and Grogu on the big screen, and especially with other Mandalorian fans. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. The big thing though is because even though I know a lot of people who watched Mandalorian season 1 and 2, there's a lot of people who fell off of Mandalorian season 3. So I am curious if this is going to prevent ticket sales from being as high as they could have been if it was released after season 2, or if anything, maybe this will actually pique people's interest in checking out Mandalorian season 3, and so more people might check it out, and then have more context going into this movie. So we'll have to wait and see. But for me personally, I can't wait.
How did you feel about Mandalorian season 3?
Definitely not the biggest fan of it. I didn't think it was bad. I enjoyed it. I thought they had some great individual episodes. I just think like the overall like art, like the big story of taking back Mandalore, I think they could have built that up just a little bit differently. I wish that instead of having this season be the season where they take it back, I wish this season they could have gone like a little more of a Game of Thrones route, and in the sense of having this be the one where you're building up that army of Mandalorians to take it back, and then have that whole thing be in the next season. I'm assuming they wrote it this way because they wanted to get Moff Gideon out of the way so they could focus on why am I blinking on his name?
Bo Katan,
No,
Grogu.
the villain in Ahsoka. Why am I blanking on his
Oh,
name?
Thrawn.
Thrawn, yeah. I think they just wanted to focus on Thrawn, so they needed an excuse to get like Moff Gideon out of the way first. But yeah, I think it could have been better if they had taken their time with it just a little bit more.
I get you. I don't know if season 3 was the strongest season of The Mandalorian, but I still walked away enjoying it. Again, there are definitely some episodes in there I just did not care for, like the Lizzo and Jack Black episode. I just honestly, I would really love to erase from my memory, honestly. But I appreciated, I really enjoy Katie Sackhoff as an actor. So her impact in the season I thought was pretty impactful for me. I really enjoyed the continued story for Mando and Grogu in here. And I will agree with you. Like when I think of the battle for Mandalore or trying to bring that back, that's almost something I would like to see in movie form. Like I honestly thought that that's what they were going to be building up to, in the sense of, hey, let's get like 3 or 4 seasons out of the way. We build up us trying to get the Mandalorians back together, and then because I feel like they have teased the idea over the past season or two of like, will we get a Mandalorian movie at some point in time? And the way that they were building it up, I just kept thinking to myself, maybe that last season of Mandalorian, or this season where the time that you actually bring it to the big screen, maybe then give us sort of like that battle for Mandalore. I think something like that would have been rather epic on the big screen. So I am just kind of curious as to where the direction for this movie is going to go. I appreciate the fact that they have already written this script out. They already know the moments that need to be hit, sort of thing. And if they're looking at this script and they're looking like, wow, there's just so many huge bombastic moments, sort of thing, that this really is meant to live on the big screen, maybe they are building up to something secondary or something bigger that I'm not even fully aware of as of right now. So I do think that this is a really good move. If there is any concern that I have, though, it probably is the same concern that I have for Marvel movies at this point. And that is the idea of how many people have actually watched The Mandalorian compared to people that actually go to the movie theaters on a weekly basis, or just your general audience. I mean, if it's got Star Wars in the title, are people just automatically going to come out? Will I have had to have watched the first 3 seasons of The Mandalorian to even know what this movie is going to be about? So my big worry is, while this movie might be great, are we sort of hindering general audiences from wanting to come out to see this movie if they have absolutely no clue who these characters are, don't know any of their sort of past history? So, if they are taking, say, the season 4 script and they're making this into a movie, clearly I would assume that there's some connective tissue pieces before. Are we going to get a Star Wars scroll in the beginning to get us caught up and up to date on some of the adventures that we've kind of missed? So I just hope that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are smart in how they construct this movie to appeal to the general audience. Because I do think if you are a fan of The Mandalorian, even if you've dropped off after season 3, I do think that there's probably some curiosity. I mean, the idea of turning this into a movie, I got to assume it was ever in the script, might have maybe been even too big for TV. Maybe the budget maybe kind of ballooned a little bit in some of the things that they want to do, maybe some character interactions and things like that. So I'm eager to see what their adventure is going to look like on the big screen. I do overall, as much as I'm concerned about it, I am very much looking forward to this because I'm a big fan of this series, honestly. And it'll be a fresh entry, I think, for Star Wars for us to get two brand new characters that we haven't been connected to before, or that we haven't really been. What's the word, oversaturated with in Star Wars on the big screen. So I'm looking forward to this. I truly am. So we'll see how it goes. But guys, I definitely want to know your thoughts in regards to this down below. As far as the Dave Filoni thing, I do think I'm glad that they at least clarified that. Look, that movie still is certainly on track. It's probably going to come after Ahsoka season 2, and I was never under the impression when they announced the Dave Filoni thing that that's something that we were going to get in 2 years. It feels very much like Disney is still building up a very big and connective story on Disney Plus, and I do think it might take one or two more seasons of Ahsoka, or maybe even another season of Mandalorian before we actually get to that point. So if anything, I am at least under the impression that if this movie is going to be taking place during this New Republic era, and we've got the Mandalorian story along with Ahsoka's kind of working parallel against each other, when I think of Dave Filoni's movie, and if Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are writing Mandalorian and the Grogu, there's a part of me that thinks that maybe these two films will be connected in some manner, or at least Mando and Grogu will be a stepping stone to kind of getting to that overall Dave Filoni film that we eventually get. Is that the impression that you're kind of under there too, Stuart?
Yes. I think again, it's less about setting it up. I think it's more about testing the waters with it. I think
Mm.
that pulling off the Mandalorian movies and giving that a theatrical release is a lot easier than doing like a Mandalorian Ahsoka crossover in theaters, especially because with that you're using a lot more characters that like general audiences probably don't know about. So I think like setting it up with Mandalorian and then also seeing like how well just the Mandalorian does is a great way to test that water, because I think the big thing that's gonna happen is that if Mandalorian this movie or if this Mandalorian movie doesn't do good in theaters, I do think there's a good chance that the other Dave Filoni movie with Ahsoka and the Mandalorian isn't gonna come to theaters.
Oh man, I hope not. I hope it does, Stuart. I hope they don't take a step
Mhm.
back because of this. But like
Well,
I hope if
you gotta watch it then.
yeah, I get you're right, right? If we want to see that Dave Filoni movie, I guess this is going to be a movie we have to come out and show support for. At the end of the day, I think you nailed it right on the head, man.
Mhm.
But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts. We now have 4 Star Wars movies announced. This one, if people were concerned, like, man, we're never gonna get any of those movies, this is one that we definitely will get for sure. Because again, the script is completely written, and John Favreau and Dave Filoni are just on a high right now. So I think Kathleen Kennedy wants to take full advantage of that while the show is still hot at this point. But let us know your thoughts, guys. The Mandalorian and Grogu on the big screen. What are some events that you certainly would like to see happen on the big screen? Will we get another appearance of a Luke Skywalker somewhere in here? Mark Hamill going to come back and de-age him properly this time? I have no idea what they're going to do, but I will be curious to kind of see what this movie is going to turn out to be. But again, these are just our A+ opinions. We want to know yours. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section box below.
I hear rumor too that they're going to be finishing up the series Andor with a movie, and that they're going to be releasing it 8 years in the past, and they're going to call it Rogue One.
I was like, where is this leading to? Yeah, that's pretty funny. Marcelina says, don't forget Skeleton Crew. It's said to take place in the Mandoverse and is also part of the Mandalorian. Yeah, we do have the Skeleton Crew. I believe that's a series that's coming to us from, was it John Watts? I believe the same guy that did the Spider-Man movies.
Oh,
He's taken a stab at some Star Wars content, and Skeleton Crew will be a series. I think that's dropping this year also. We also have the Acolyte that's set to come. There's plenty of Star Wars television for us to definitely enjoy in 2024 for sure. But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts on The Mandalorian and Grogu going to the big screen. All right, Stuart, with that out of the way, man, let's go ahead and move on to our next topic, shall we? And this is going to be in the form of the DCU, as James Gunn's DCU is certainly back in the news. And I got to be honest with you, Stuart, this announcement really surprised me due to how early this casting call has come. I was actually waiting for this casting call to happen maybe later on in the year or maybe in 2025. I was not expecting it to happen this time. But according to Deadline and some other reports, apparently, there is already a possible short list of actors that have gone out for the Supergirl role. Now, Supergirl is set to go ahead and get her own movie at some point in time titled Supergirl, The Woman of Tomorrow. James Gunn has come out and talked about it, giving us a little bit of a brief synopsis, if you will, mentioning the idea that this is going to be a vastly different Supergirl than we've seen before, or at least a vastly different Supergirl compared to her cousin in Superman. He really very much emphasizes the idea that, look, this was a 14-year-old girl who really had to witness the death and destruction of her own planet, surviving on her own and seeing her people die in just really horrifying ways. And I am assuming when you're stuck in space and you've seen all these horrible things, you probably don't have the clearest of minds, to say the least. So I am kind of curious as to who this Supergirl is going to be mentally. But when it comes to casting, it seems as though we already have some names, Stuart. So let's go ahead and bring this up here. This comes to us from deadline.com. And some of these names you guys might actually recognize and be familiar with. Supergirl, Millie Alcock, Amelia Jones, and Meg Donnelly among those in the mix to screen test for the role. Let me go ahead and bring this up while I read this a little bit. But it says, this is an exclusive. It says, we are hearing that the studio is planning to test actresses soon to star in Supergirl, and that Millie Alcock, Amelia Jones, and Meg Donnelly are in the mix. There is a chance that the studio could make a straight offer to a star, but all things are pointing towards screen tests for actresses, which will go down within the next month or so, we hear. So again, they're talking about this being potential Supergirls that we've named, but there's also an outside chance that the studio could immediately just say, hey, you know what? We have an actress already in mind. Let's just approach her with the contract, see if that'll work. If not, we have some screen tests that we can certainly work with. It says Deadline understands that DC Studios co-boss James Gunn is definitely part of the process, as this is a character who will likely make its debut via a cameo in a DC project that isn't Supergirl. The search is ongoing for a director, so this might explain why we're getting this this casting announcement as early as we are. It says Alcock is best known for her lead role in HBO Game of Thrones spinoff House of the Dragon, playing Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen. So she's up for the role potentially. It does say that Jones counts feature credits such as Youth and Apple's Oscar Best Picture winner Coda, as well as the Netflix series Lock and Key. And then we also have Donnelly, who has starred in Disney Channel's Zombies franchise and is already the voice of Supergirl in the DC animated movies Legion of Superheroes and Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1. It says James Gunn announced this movie back in 2022. Gunn said at the time, in our series, we see the difference between Superman, who was sent to Earth and raised by loving parents from the time that he was an infant, versus Supergirl, who was raised on a rock, a chip off Krypton, and watched everyone around her die and be killed in terrible ways for the first 14 years of her life, and then came to Earth when she was a young girl. She's much more hardcore. She's not exactly the Supergirl we're used to seeing. So that's what we have right now. So potentially our Supergirl could be any three of these women or even another actress at this point in time. But I do want to bring this other piece up here, Stuart, just to clarify some things, because James Gunn, after this announcement, did go to Threads, the app Threads, and drop this piece of information. And I am kind of curious if this is anything to do with this Supergirl news. but this is sort of an update to this article. He says, it's difficult to debunk stories that are fake, but with some element of truth. Either I have to point out what's fake and what's true and give away a bunch of stuff I didn't want to, or I just say the whole thing is fake and get accused of dishonesty down the line when the one true part comes out. Anyway, there's a couple of those stories around recently. So I am curious if he's referring to this particular story, and if so, what elements are true and what elements are not. So I'm kind of curious. Do you think any of these women are up for this role, Stuart? Like there's more information in this article that maybe is true, but maybe some of these names aren't. What are you taking a guess at?
If I had to guess, I would assume that guy. I don't know. I think that at least one of the three of them are basically auditioning for Supergirl. Or
Mm-hmm.
maybe all three of them are auditioning, but we don't know which one of them are actually being considered. And that might be like the big thing, is that like James Gunn knows these names because he knows of them being like, auditioning for the role. But if he says that, no, it's not true that we were, but like, yeah, the big thing is that he may at the time not be considering any of them. So it's like, yeah, I definitely see where he's coming from. It's like it's so hard to say what's true and what isn't true without giving too much away. Because if you confirmed like one of them is auditioning, then suddenly you give all the fans a chance to like what's called narrow it down and things like that. So yeah, no, I totally get where he's coming from. I think that if I'm being optimistic, I'm hoping that it's true that all three of them are trying out, because I think that they could all do a pretty good job, especially because one of them, let me look up the name real quick, because I was Googling all the names while you were reading them off. Meg Donnelly has actually played Supergirl in the Tomorrowverse for both Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1 and Legion of Superheroes. So I could see her like auditioning for a live action role, and it wouldn't be the first time DC's had a animated voice actor go to or someone who's voiced a certain character in an animated project suddenly play them in live action. Because we got that same thing with Catwoman from the Lego Batman movie. The woman that voiced Catwoman in that actually voiced her in or not voiced her, actually played her in the Robert Pattinson Batman movie. So yeah, I could see that happening with Meg Donnelly. And the last thing I'll say about it is that, yeah, all three of them definitely look like they could pull off the Supergirl suit. Like they all look like they could like definitely fit in that role really well. So I could see any one of them as Supergirl, honestly.
Yeah, I will say I think if out of the three actresses, and who knows, maybe James Gunn has somebody else in mind at the end of the day. Um, but I think out of the three, my first two that immediately come to me is Meg Donnelly and Amelia Jones. Just looking at them, I'm like, yeah, I can definitely see them as Supergirls. The actress that already is playing in House of the Dragon, she's a great actress. Definitely not taking anything from her. I really enjoyed her role in House of the Dragon. But when I just from looks alone, I'm very much leaning towards Meg Donnelly and Amelia Jones. And also in part because there is something cool, Stuart, and James Gunn has not shied away from the idea of mentioning like, hey, some of these animated series that we create, we will be taking those actors and putting them in live action. I think he's doing that with the Creature Commando stuff. David Harbour, I think, is going to be Frankenstein as the voice actor. And so I would assume if those Creature Commandos ever come to the big screen, David Harbour is going to be playing that character as well. And so while I believe the Tomorrowverse stuff is very much before James Gunn's time in DCU, I do think that there's something really cool about the idea of him being aware of, who's doing the voice of Supergirl in animation right now? And if it's Meg Donnelly and she can give you a great live action version of the character as well, I think that would make a lot of fans happy, because I think when
Mm-hmm.
you think of movies, especially when it comes to superhero movies, if these characters are voiced by somebody in on animation, a lot of the times the fan base really wants them to at least get an opportunity or at least see them come to the big screen also. I mean, we had that issue with Ashley Eckstein, who voices Ahsoka in Star Wars, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, she should play Ahsoka in live action." I don't think it would have worked, but I think that's an example of like how a fan base can certainly get when it comes to some of their animated characters. So I think Meg Don, I think she looks the role. If she voices the role really well, I can easily see James Gunn giving her certainly an opportunity. I don't know too much about Amelia Jones, but looks wise, I can easily see her being a Supergirl as well. So yeah, I'm completely up for this. I am trying to think though, if this article talks about the idea of like she could play a cameo in another DC property, because one thing that I said at the top, Stuart, was I was kind of surprised that Supergirl is even being looked at right now when you've got so many other movies and television shows that James Gunn is getting ready to produce. So the fact that this is even a short list and that they're going to be casting soon makes me think, is she going to pop up in something like a Superman Legacy? Is she going to pop up in a second movie like The Authority somewhere? Will it be a television series she pops up in? There is something in this article, Stuart, that is not factual, and I'm trying to figure it out based off of what James Gunn certainly said. So do you cast for a Supergirl and she not have a cameo in anything, but you set that up as early as possible? That I don't know, but I will say I'm eager to see who he winds up deciding on, because I do think he's got some great actresses to certainly pull from, honestly.
You know, it would be kind of funny too, is if like he currently, as of now, still sees Sasha Kaye in the role of Supergirl, but he only has these other three up there just in like the off chance that Sasha Kaye can't like reprise the role, like if something else comes up, and so that's why he's looking at options. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, and that's why he said that with the article, because that would be true. Then it's like in a way there is some truth to it that they are auditioning for Supergirl, and he is looking at them. However, his number one choice could still be Sasha Kaye, but he wants to wait and see. He doesn't want to
Give it,
he
like,
doesn't
give
want
it
to
away.
doesn't want to lock her down with a contract too, just in case she decides she doesn't want to do this.
And you know what? I'll even back that idea of yours, because if I'm not mistaken, and you can Google who the writer of this Supergirl movie is, but I believe that they announced that the writer also was writing the Sasha Kaye Supergirl movie that was supposed to be in development early on as well. And since they decided to go a different direction, they're clearly not going to go with that Supergirl movie. But I guess that they were so impressed with the script that they rehired her for the new Supergirl movie. And so when I think of that, the first thing that comes to my mind is, well, if you're keeping the writer around that was writing for a Sasha Kaye Supergirl and you're bringing her back, is there an opportunity here where Sasha Kaye can simply return? She's never had her own movie. She was just simply a supporting role in the Flash movie. Or is something like that going to cause just way too much confusion, right? I think James Gunn has been trying to do his best of avoiding the idea of like taking actors that have already reprised their role before or has had these roles in the previous DCEU, and maybe not wanting to necessarily bring them back. But I do think that there's room for a Sasha Kaye return based off of just how many people really enjoyed her in the role, regardless if you love The Flash or not. I think some people will say Sasha Kaye, along with Michael Keaton, were pretty strong in their roles. So that's something I would really hope for. And I wonder if the idea of that same writer that was doing that Supergirl movie now on board for this film, if that kind of opens the door. So maybe you're onto something there, Stuart, but we'll see.
Yeah. We'll have to wait and see.
Were you able to locate that at all? That Google, the Supergirl writer?
I was able to find that Anna Nagaria. I'm not sure how that last name is pronounced, but basically, yeah, they do have a writer for the movie, but I wasn't able to see if she was already slated to write the original script for the Supergirl movie as well.
Gotcha. I understand. Let's see here. What's some comments that you guys are saying in regards to that? Johnny Marrero, what's up, Johnny? Appreciate you coming through today. He says Meg Donnelly is from Disney's Zombies, and I heard there's going to be a fourth Zombies for Disney. Also, I can see Meg as Supergirl. Honestly, I can too, just visually. I haven't seen her in any movies or anything like that. Maybe I'll check out Disney Zombies just to kind of see what her performance and stuff is like. And I would recommend that for anybody. If you are interested to know more about some of these actors and if they would fit these roles perfectly, go ahead and check out some of their previous work and certainly determine that for yourself. Marcelino says, I don't know why, but Meg Donnelly looks like Rachel Scarston in that photo. Yeah, maybe it was just one of the photos that I was using and found. Indy must be fuming right now because he said he wanted Sasha Kaye to continue to be Supergirl, but now we know that's not going to happen. I mean, who knows? Who knows, Marcelino? James Gunn is holding on to some level of secrets for sure.
Yeah.
And shout out to my girlfriend Cindy for certainly coming through. Good to certainly see you as always. Stay warm over there, babe. I hope your mom dropped off that winter the scarf and stuff for you.
One last thing I do also want to say is that if Millie Alok doesn't get the role of Supergirl, I do still really want to see her in the DC universe, whether it's like whether it's Supergirl or just, you know, some other hero out there. I do feel like there's a role for her somewhere in the DC universe. So hopefully her being interested in, you know, just, you know, being in a DC movie, hopefully that continues over the years, even if we don't see her as Supergirl.
Yeah, absolutely. So guys, let us know your thoughts. Out of this short list, which one of these actresses would you like to certainly play Supergirl? Do you think there's still a shot for Sasha Kaye out there? And with James Gunn talking about the idea that, look, you know, there are a couple stories out there that have elements of truth, but elements of fake news. But he can't necessarily always come out and debunk everything because of that. What element do you think out of the story could potentially be true or not true? We definitely want to go ahead and know your guys' thoughts in the comment section box below, guys. So let us know what you think. And shout out again to everybody that's watching us live. Again, we're live over on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch for you guys out there. Feel free to like these videos, share these videos, clip elements of these videos, and share them if you'd like, guys. That's how we continue to grow with your support. All right, Stuart, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and transition to our next story. As we're really going to be wrapping up this show with like 4 back-to-back movie topics for you guys. And one that I'm really excited to go ahead and get into. This week, Empire Magazine is in fact rolling out its preview for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. We have had a trailer for it several months ago. And ever since then, I've been highly anticipating brand new looks. And this week, we have gotten ourselves not only a brand new image, but we also got the opportunity, I believe it's Empire Magazine that dropped brand new covers as well, as we have the OG team returning to Ghostbusters. As you can see, the crew here, I mean, they got everybody certainly coming back, along with a secondary cover that highlights sort of the new generation of Ghostbusters as well. And I came across this one on I guess if you put them side by side, it makes a great sort of unfolding image for new and old school generations when it comes to Ghostbusters. But Stuart, this movie is continuing to get bigger and bigger. And I'm a little bit bummed. Look, man, I missed out on Ghostbusters Afterlife. I missed it in movie theaters. And ever since then, I feel like it's been on video on demand forever. Like the only way I can watch this movie is if I pay for it still. And I'm like, isn't this movie like a year or two old? Why is this not available for just free streaming yet? If it is streaming anywhere free, please let me know because I want to check this movie out before Frozen Empire winds up dropping. But we do have ourselves a little bit of a preview as Ernie Hudson is certainly back to reprise his role, and he had some interesting things to definitely say about where his character is after all these years. So, Stuart, let's go ahead and dive into this one, man. This comes to us from Empire Magazine. This one says, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire has the original team back in action. When the world is threatened, who you're going to call? And we got ourselves an exclusive image here. So let me go ahead and bring that up while we discuss this. It says, as teased at the end of Afterlife, Winston is core to the crew's return in the sequel, responsible for reopening the New York firehouse. This is what Ernie Hudson says. He says, Winston's a wealthy guy now, and he's funding research into new technology and the science behind ghost busting, is what Ernie Hudson says. He says he won't be stuck behind the scenes, though. When the world is threatened, who you going to call? He suits up with the rest of them. The article also goes on to say equally keen to get out on the city streets is Dan Aykroyd's Ray stance. Not that his benefactor agrees. Ray's been retired, is what Dan Aykroyd says. He's got fitness problems, insurance problems. Winston's the shot caller now, and he's decided Ray should step back from ghost busting frontline and just be an advisor. Ray does not like this. Gozer's gone, but there's an equally terrible threat emerging from Queens by the way of the Indus Valley, and Ray wants to be out there driving the Cadillac. He says, and there's no chance Bill Murray was going to miss the fun. Bill had always been hesitant about coming back to Ghostbusters, and for good reason. His bar of greatness is very high, is what Jason Reitman admits, who helmed Afterlife. But he loves Gil, and has history with him, so there was no question that he'd be there. It says, ensembling the legendary Ghostbusters for another New York adventure had Keenan intent on living up to the legacy of one and only Ivan Reitman, Jason's father. Not a day went by that I didn't ask myself, how would Ivan handle this, said Keenan. I wanted that same approach to character comedy and scares he had on the first two Ghostbusters. This one feels more connected to those movies than Afterlife was. Get ready. It's time to cross the streams. So I think that's a really great preview, if you ask me. I think there's a ton of really juicy information in here to kind of break down. And can I just say, props to Winston for really taking and having a huge role in here. I was so mad about the way that he was handled in Ghostbusters 2, honestly. So the fact that now Winston is the wealthy one and he's using that wealth to go ahead and create technology and allow him to continue to ghost bust and things like that. I'm ready for Ernie Hudson to play a bigger role in this franchise in some capacity. So I'm really pumped for this this idea of where Winston is. And I think it's even cooler to learn about where Ray is at this point in time, seeing Dan Aykroyd talk about just all the problems that he's dealing with. And look, it feels very much like that Mel Gibson and like just that Lethal Weapon mentality of I'm getting too old for this shit. You know what I mean? So the fact that Ray just realizes like I want to do this, but I can't do it like I used to, I think is really eye-opening. Just for just the character growth and where they've come after all this time, and the fact that you managed to get all these characters back, like a Bill Murray who is very picky on the movies that he chooses to do, and the fact that you were able to finally get him back for this one is such a win. I think it's just going to add such levity to this film. I think people that saw Ghostbusters Afterlife probably walked away with a really, really a positive reaction to it, and maybe the direction in which that the series itself is now going to go. So the fact that we have managed to get a younger generation now involved with the OGs, I think is a really great way to not only cross, as the article says, cross streams, but also kind of give the younger generation that rub, you know what I mean? Like, all right, we've officially accepted it's time for us to move on with this Ghostbusters franchise. Clearly, Jason Reitman has put together a great script to even get some of these characters back. And if it's as successful as I'm hoping that it is, I can guarantee you these younger generations going into a third Ghostbuster film for this trilogy is hopefully even going to do even better. So I love the sound of what we're getting here right now. And finally, some justice for Winston, man. But what did you think about this, Stuart, reading this this article?
Very, very, very surprising. Looking at the first Ghostbusters Afterlife movie, really enjoyed it. It was a great movie, but it definitely was a movie that played itself safe by taking place in a very small town. Clearly didn't have the biggest budget out there, which is totally fine because it was definitely a movie that focused more on the new characters, very much a passing the torch type of movie, which I always love. I always think like that's the best way to reboot a franchise. I think the 2016 Ghostbusters movie, you would have had a lot, not saying like everyone would have been okay with it, nothing like that, but I'm saying you would have had a lot less upset fans if the 2016 Ghostbusters movie had taken place in the original like universe and it had been a passing the torch type of movie, kind of like how they advertised with the first teaser. Like I almost want to say that first teaser for 2016's Ghostbusters was like false advertising, you know, in that area. But you know, that all being said, I think like the second one, I like that, you know, they played it safe for the first one and now they're going balls to the wall by taking it back to New York City, having the entire city being frozen over. And then even though, you know, I wouldn't have been mad if we didn't get the entire cast back because we got him back in the previous movie for a really fun, like kind of epic climax at the very end. And I thought that was a really great send off. But the fact that they're still coming back also gives me a lot of hope that this is going to be a really good script. Especially, yeah, because Bill Murray is very picky about the type of movies that he's in. So if he's coming back to this after constantly, like several times saying that he's not coming back to Ghostbusters, I mean, he's the reason the original script for Ghostbusters 3 like never saw the light of days because like he was the one who was insistent on not wanting to come back to the franchise. So if he's coming back and you know, same with the entire cast, and just seeing how they're making the scope of this movie just that much bigger, yeah, I think this is going to be an incredible film, and I'm really excited to see if this is even better than Afterlife, or if not, at the very least, you know, how it holds, you know, with the Afterlife movie. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I got to check out Afterlife for myself. I mean, I think the idea that you bring up, maybe it having a lower budget, I am curious what the budget for that film was, but I think that's a smart move also at the same time, right? Because you're trying to reboot a franchise. You don't know how well it's going to do, especially if you're very much carrying a film with the younger generation, characters that we're not too familiar with, sort of thing. If it feels like a safe play, it probably was in order to actually produce some sort of profit at the end of the day and actually have a big win at the box office to maybe turn around and then wind up having a sequel. I don't did that movie that movie did get a theatrical release, right? The pandemic didn't interfere with that.
It got a theatrical release, but the box office sales were extremely low. I think for two reasons. One, because it was released, I think late 2020 or early 2021. So it came out like just at a really bad time. And then
Right.
the other thing too was because it was so, I think also like people were just confused because, you know, we just had a Ghostbusters movie like 4 years ago. And, you know, it looked completely
Mm.
different from that one. So I think that was like the main thing is like general audiences that, you know, don't keep up with movie news were probably like, wait, what's going on?
No, you're probably right there. You're probably right in that regards. But I do believe that the movie itself got some pretty positive reactions towards it. So now we have ourselves a sequel coming, and I'm really looking forward to it. The fact that they even have Janine in a Ghostbusters costume blows me away. Also, I am kind of curious as to like what her role is going to be. Is she really going to pick up a proton pack at some point in time, or what's the situation there? But they're really bringing back everybody here, so I'm really eager for this. But guys, look, we want to know your thoughts. You hear where some of these characters now find themselves after all these years. Does that fascinate you and interest you? I think the idea of going back to New York for me as a original New Yorker, I'm really thrilled to see them go back to their fire station also. So we'll see how this comes together. But Frozen Empire definitely has our attention, y'all. But at the end of the day, we certainly want to know yours. What's your level of excitement for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire? Is there a character that you're really interested to kind of see how their characters grow, what they've been up to? We definitely want to know your thoughts in the comment section box below. But yeah, man, I'm gonna have to. Yeah, if you guys can find Ghostbusters Afterlife for free somewhere on a streaming service, let me know. I don't want to necessarily have to download it, but I will do it if I must. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I Googled it. I couldn't find it. So yeah, it looks like the only way to watch it currently is by paying for it.
Paying for it. All right. Well, maybe I will eventually. We'll see how that goes.
I will say this: if you do decide to watch it, it is a good movie. I think you will. I think you will enjoy it,
I
and
think I
you'll.
like it
Yeah,
too. It's got some actors in it that I'm really fond of. I do love Paul Rudd, the kid from Stranger Things. I think I think I really want to see where his career certainly takes him, and the fact that he's in that movie too definitely has my interest. But just the trailers alone kind of intrigued me, so I'm really interested to see what that movie's all about.
yeah.
But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts on the current Ghostbuster films. All right, Stuart, with that out of the way, let's transition into our next topic. As the movie that saved the cinemas is back in the news. That's right, Top Gun Maverick, baby, is in the news, or I should say Tom Cruise is back in the news. He's actually been getting a lot of headlines this week. For those of you who don't know, Tom Cruise recently just signed a deal with Warner Brothers to do movies with them, whether that be starring in them, producing in them. I don't believe it's clearly not an exclusive contract, but Tom Cruise is definitely putting a lot of his time going forward with Warner Brothers. So that definitely made a big impact in the news cycle. But this one did also, coming off of the huge success of Top Gun Maverick that was in theaters what felt like a lifetime ago, that made over $1 billion. I think $1.4 billion in theaters. I hope it even gets a re-release at some point in time to be able to have the opportunity to see it back on the big screen. But because of its huge success, I think this announcement was just only a matter of time, Stuart. But Top Gun 3 is in the works. We can expect this to end up at least being a trilogy. And this is according to Deadline.com. Top Gun 3 in the works at Paramount following Tom Cruise's Warner Brothers pact. So we're set to go ahead and get ourselves more Maverick, to say the least. And I think a lot of people are really going to be happy with it. Let's go ahead and bring this article up, shall we? It says, even though Tom Cruise inked a non-exclusive pact with Warner Brothers earlier this week, it looks like he'll continue to be busy with Paramount for some time. Reports tonight are that Top Gun 3 is in development at Paramount, with Top Gun co-writer Aaron Kruger currently writing the draft. The article also states that the word is that the project would reunite Cruise with Maverick's Miles Teller and Glenn Powell, as well as producers Jerry Bruckheimer. And it says Joe Kaczynski will reportedly will either direct or produce. Tom Cruise is currently shooting Mission Impossible 8 for Paramount. Also brewing over at Universal's is the actor's outer space movie with NASA that Doug Liman is set to go ahead and direct. It says that they had news about Top Gun tonight, and that they're speculating that it could be the 3-time Oscar nominee's potential next project after Mission Impossible 8. Even without Top Gun 3, it will be challenging for Cruise to get anything off the ground at Warner Brothers for a couple of years. Top Gun Maverick is the highest grossing movie of Cruise's career at $1.49 billion, and it won an Oscar last year for Best Sound, but was nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. Stuart, what's your level of excitement for seeing Tom Cruise back for a Top Gun 3, man? Are you pumped for this?
I'm going to try not to get my excitement too high up, because the last time he promised a Top Gun sequel was like in the 90s, saying, oh, yeah, I could see one coming out in the next couple of years or so. So him announcing it now makes me think that we're probably not going to get it till like 2054 or something like that, if he's even like still around by that time. So we'll have to wait and see. But I mean, if this movie does come out, then yes, I absolutely love Top Gun Maverick. I think like the way it was filmed, the fact that they use they actually have the actors flying in those planes, and the angles that they use inside the cockpits, I think just always looked amazing. It genuinely was like the perfect movie to watch in theaters, especially if you love especially if you love flying scenes in movies. Like, you love feeling like you're in the air, especially like with everything that you see, or at least a majority of what you see actually, like, being real. So if they're willing to put that time and money into a third movie, I don't care how long I have to wait for it. I will definitely go watch it in theaters again, because yeah, the previous one was such a great experience. Yeah, I think this is really cool news.
Yeah, man, I know people are gonna throw tomatoes at me. I still have not seen this movie, man.
Really?
I still have not seen it. It's available on streaming, but and I think they even did a re-release for it in theaters, specifically on IMAX. So I think that's why in the beginning when I announced this story, I was like, I hope they re-release this movie because I really want to see it on the big screen, man. Like everybody that has seen this movie tells me you got to see it in the movies. It's just an experience sort of unto itself. And even after all this time, Stuart, with just how much sort of like our world has changed since the first Top Gun. I don't know if there's as many dog fights that in the world anymore like they certainly used to, or how much technology has kind of changed. So to be able to kind of get that experience on the big screen, like you mentioned, the cockpit scenes, get an opportunity to see them flying real planes and all the crazy stunts that they managed to do in here. I'm sure it's a pretty big sight to behold, to certainly say the least. And that's one of the reasons why I need to go see this movie in theaters. Like I have the option to see it on streaming on my television. It's not like I'm watching it off of some dinky, like, little square box at home or anything like that. Like I've got a great experience, but I think the reason why I have not watched it yet is because I truly want to see this movie in the movie theaters. I may never get that chance again. I may just have to settle for it by the time Top Gun 3 comes out, but I really hope that Top Gun Maverick is released in theaters again at some point in time because I want to see it. I think Tom Cruise is effing crazy. But I appreciate all the stunts and things like that he does. And I don't mean crazy and like mental. I mean, look, you can judge Tom Cruise all you want to, but I truly mean crazy in the sense of just putting his life on the line to make great cinema. And I just think he is one of the sort of remaining movie stars in Hollywood that can really make a movie experience feel like what a true movie experience should be. And the fact that he continues to go above and beyond, I think says more about him and just his career than anything else that Tom Cruise honestly finds himself in, whatever his hobbies tend to be these days. I have no idea, but I appreciate him continuing to be in front of the camera and really giving his best foot forward, sort of thing. Stuart, it's funny. Do you remember when we were going through the pandemic and there was, they were shutting down movie studios? People were barely filming things, but Tom Cruise was determined to get his movie prepared. And I don't remember if you remember, like during that time, they released audio of like Tom Cruise yelling at his staff and his crew members because people were catching COVID or slowing production down. And he was really just adamant about people like, we need to be safe around here. Like we need to stop bullshitting around because people need to go back to the theaters. They need to experience these things. And he definitely got some flack for the way that he talked about it. But I think when you look back and you see the movie that actually came out of all of this, it's like, yeah, this is what Tom Cruise was fighting so adamantly for. And it went on to make $1.4 billion at the box office. So with that type of money, it's no surprise that there is, in fact, a Top Gun 3 certainly happening. Bring it on. Mission Impossible 7 didn't do too well in the box office. I do credit that a lot to releasing at the same time Oppenheimer came out, or around that time period, where he didn't get the opportunity to have his movie on the IMAX screen. And that IMAX screen viewing definitely does help the box office for sure. So I'm glad that he's continuing along with Mission Impossible, but I'm ready for him to get back inside the cockpit for Top Gun 3 and really give it his best. And the fact that we are getting some returning members here as well, like Miles Teller and Glenn Powell, I think is a big win for continuing the story of Top Gun Maverick. So we'll see, man. But I think this is, I agree with you. I think this is really great news.
Yeah. As to like the stuff like from 2020 with him getting like I haven't heard like the audio, so I don't know like what exactly he said. But I can
I mean, it's
definitely
like a lot of
understand.
F-bombs, a lot of
Uh
cursing, a lot of yelling.
yeah, I can see where the frustration comes from because you got a lot of. I'm assuming like this is how production tended to go back then. You have plenty of people who are totally healthy, doing what they're supposed to do, going into work. But then you have one person who catches a cold, is so sure it's a cold and nothing else. They go into work, and then suddenly they spread it to the entire cast and crew, and now suddenly production has to shut down. I can see why that would be extremely frustrating. Like, if I were Tom Cruise, I'd be like, yeah, if you feel even just the tiniest bit under weather, test yourself before coming into work. Do not make us all have to stop what we're doing because you were too lazy to take a COVID test,
And he clearly takes his movie going experiences very seriously,
Oh yeah.
and he takes the jobs of the people that are relying on these movies very seriously also. I appreciate just his mentality towards really wanting people to enjoy the movie going experience, and he honestly does put his best foot forward when it comes to that type of stuff. So I think this is a big win for Paramount and Tom Cruise, and I expect this movie to do, hopefully, as long as the script is good, to do certainly just as well. So I'm assuming Mission Impossible 8 as he's currently filming. Then he'll probably get in front of the cameras for Top Gun 3. And then whatever he else plans on doing for Warner Brothers will probably come after that. Indy's in the house. What's up, Indy? Good to see you, man. I'm assuming he's probably at work right now. He says, y'all killing it as usual. It is negative 27 here in Wisconsin. What's up with all these negatives, y'all? I guess it shouldn't surprise me. If Texas is rocking at like 18, 19 degrees, I feel like it never really gets that cold around here. I guess that should not surprise me, but that is bananas. He also says rather have Tom Cruise. Rather have a new Mummy movie without Tom Cruise. That movie, I never saw that Mummy movie. Have you, Stuart?
It was so bad.
Was it?
It
People weren't
was.
exaggerating.
No, yeah, it was honestly, oh god, I want to say it was worse than Venom. Like it was really, really bad.
Ooh,
Like I,
worse
I
than Venom.
almost
Don't tell me that, Stuart.
yeah, because like I don't even think I enjoyed like how bad it was. Like usually with some bad movies, I can have some guilty pleasure from it. I don't even think I could get guilty pleasure from this movie. It was just
Wow.
so poorly written. Even Tom Cruise, even though I'll admit that he clearly worked hard from looking at all of his stunts in the movie, it just felt like acting wise, it was one of his worst performances.
Yeah, maybe he didn't really care for that movie then so much.
Maybe not.
Um, Blossom says, Tom, haven't seen that dude since Jerry Maguire. Hashtag show me the money. Yeah, man. Yeah, Blossom. He's definitely been in plenty other things since then. I would highly recommend checking out some of his stuff. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts on Top Gun 3 in the comment section box below. And with that, Stuart, let's move on to our next topic because we're going to get more into the horror slash zombie realm, to certainly say the least, with this one. And this is one that I'm really looking forward to, man, because this franchise to me sort of really revitalize just the concept of zombies, or some people will be like, it's not a zombie movie, it's a virus movie sort of thing. I mean, look, whether it's a virus infection, whatever the case may be, 28 days later really sort of transformed the genre. It also wound up bringing us a fantastic actor in Cillian Murphy, that's probably nominated for an Oscar off of his most recent film in Oppenheimer. They also went on to go ahead and do a sequel in 28 Weeks Later, which I was actually a big fan of that one also. I thought this franchise has had two great entries into it. Ever since then, I have been eagerly awaiting a sequel for quite some time. I thought that the next entry was going to be like a 28 months later or something like that, and it just never came to fruition. Not to say that 28 Weeks Later was a bad movie. I don't know if it was as good as 28 Days Later, but I thought it was a great sort of modern day zombie flick at its time when it wound up dropping. So I was really expecting some sort of movement after that film, and years later, nothing still. until this week, Stuart. Let's go ahead and talk about this because this franchise is ready to kick off once again. This comes from to us from Variety, where it says 28 days later sequel in the works. Danny Boyle, Alex Garland reteamed to launch a new trilogy with the film 28 years later. So let's go ahead and talk about this real quick. This says Danny Boyle and Alex Garland are collaborating on a follow-up to their zombie genre game changer 28 days later, developing a follow-up titled 28 years later that would hope launch a new trilogy of films. William Morris Endeavor, which represents both creators, looks to shop the project to studios and streamers later this year. Released in 2002, so 2002, still only 22 years ago. We're not quite at the 28 years mark. The original 28 Days Later, starring Cillian Murphy, then largely unknown to moviegoer audiences. It shocked moviegoers with its sprinting undead hordes, unforgiving pessimism, and cutting edge employment of the murky frontier that was early digital photography. Boyle directed the feature while Garland wrote, flipping its economic production budget of $8 million to an $84 million gross at the box office. The zombie film was a hit on home video too, and has since risen to the status of the classic within the genre. I believe for me, I believe I saw it on home video, or I can't remember where I first saw 28 Days Later, but I definitely did not get the opportunity to see it in movie theaters. But it says a sequel 28 weeks later was released in 2007. Though Boyle and Garland were solely attached as executive producers, it was directed by Juan Carlos Fresnadillo. The horror film was a slightly boosted production budget of $15 million, but still a successful global gross of $65 million. It does say in here also that 28 years later would be directed by Boyle, who hasn't helmed a feature since the 2019 romantic comedy Yesterday. Garland, who has directed his own features such as Ex Machina, great movie, Annihilation, and the upcoming dystopia film Civil War, the trailers are great for Civil War, is attached to write a full trilogy of zombie entries. So they really are concerned the idea of launching 28 years later into a trilogy of films. The project is seeking a production budget of $75 million, a notable uptick from its thrifty origins of the franchise. So, and this is what Cillian Murphy had to say about it. He says, every time I do bump into Danny and Alex, I always mention it. I showed it to my kids recently, some Halloween about 4 or 5 years ago, and they loved it. It really stands up, which is amazing for a film that's 20 years old. So yeah, I love the idea, and it's very appealing to me. In the same feature, Boyle praised Garland's pitch for the sequel, saying, it feels like a very good time, actually. It's funny. I hadn't thought about it until you just said it. And I remember, bang, this script, which is again set in England, very much about England. So even Cillian Murphy, in some of his passing interviews as early as 2022, has talked about his interest of possibly doing another movie. And I think personally, Stuart, I think that would be a really big win for this, especially the idea that when it comes to Cillian Murphy, him now being sort of fresh off of an Oscar nominee, or at least I would assume he's going to be nominated for Oppenheimer. I mean, if you're Danny Boyle and you've got this sort of connection with Cillian Murphy. I hope Cillian Murphy hasn't gotten too big for his britches here, and is allowing himself to still be humble and take on these sort of movies. Because after 28 Days Later, if I'm not mistaken, I don't believe his character was even referenced in 28 Weeks Later, or maybe he might have been referenced. I can't remember, but definitely not seen on screen. And I kind of want to know what he's been up to after all these years. Has he managed to survive in this world, which, mind you, Stuart, Stuart, anytime I watch 28 Days Later, I just think to myself, there is no way I would survive this. Like, just the idea of these zombies being able to actually run after my ass in sprinting mode, no way, no way. I just couldn't. I'd be one of the first people that died during this time period. So I've always been fascinated by this. This has been one of, like, these zombies, or these infectious people, however you want to refer to them as, has always terrified me. And I think that's really what makes this series so incredibly good. So, one, I hope Cillian Murphy does return, because I want to see what his character is up to. And I think this has been such two solid and really great, enjoyable entries to this franchise. I'm honestly ready for a third, and it's about time. If there is anything that worries me, though, out of this article, this is just the time period that we live in, where it almost feels like every movie has to be a trilogy. The mentality of, can we not just get one solid movie told? And if it's great, then you know what? Maybe have other things in mind down the road. Maybe have some cliff notes or whatever the case may be. But the idea of immediately pushing it as, hey, we want to get a brand new trilogy out of this. No, just tell me you want to do one movie and see how it goes from there. Look, I think they've done a great job in putting together these previous two films. So I trust that whatever script that they come up with that will break this movie down into 3 parts, or a trilogy of films, I'm sure the story and the characters stuff will definitely be there. But just the idea of announcing this so far ahead. You know what else Stewart wants to do a trilogy? The Exorcist. And I think we all saw how The Exorcist Believer did at the box office, and the reactions that it wind up getting. And it's like, they're still going to force a second movie down our throats despite nobody really caring for the first movie. It's just that mentality that always irks me a little bit. So focus on the first movie. And I think Danny Boyle and them will do a fantastic job of 28 Years Later. But I'm hyped for this. I think this is great news. I'm pumped for it, Stuart. But what are your thoughts about the return, or the upcoming 28 Years Later?
Before I get to that, just my thoughts on it being a trilogy. I don't think there's anything wrong with like wanting to do a trilogy for the most part, having ideas for where you could go with the next couple movies. But I do agree with you. I think the important part is definitely to focus on that first movie and make sure that that is done right. Basically make it as if you aren't, like, make it like it is going to be the only movie you're going to release. I think, like, when you do, like, when you're starting off a franchise, you should never start it off by like setting other things up. I think you should be able to tell a complete story, and then, once you're done with that, then start to work on, expanding that world. They always say, like, the first movie establishes the universe, the second movie mythologizes the universe. And I know that technically this is a third movie, but because it's been so many years since 28 Weeks Later, I would consider this, a reboot. So I think that, yeah, if you're going to do this, you should start it as a solo project, pretty much. That all being said, yes, I love 28 Days Later. Have not seen 28 Weeks Later, but thought 28 Days Later was a great movie, especially given the really low budget that it had. Had some incredible shots that I'm surprised they were able to do, like the fact that they were able to close down so many roads for those really cool shots to show, like, how empty the city is. The fact that they were able to pull that off with a very, very low budget, because normally movies like that you have to at least have, like, $80 million for, things like that. Shots like that are expensive to do. So I don't know how they were able to convince the city to let them do that, but freaking awesome. And then, yeah, of course, the fact that, the main characters in this movie are just people trying to survive, and they cling themselves to the one thing that they thought could protect them, and then of course they end up being just as dangerous as the zombies themselves. I love themes like that. And now getting to see this world but expanded 28 years after the zombie apocalypse has started, I think is brilliant. I love zombie movies, as you probably know, because I used to be a huge fan of the Walking Dead show. I love the Walking Dead comic books, like literally some of my favorite comic books out there. So that all being said, you tell me zombie movies, especially one that has had an apocalypse for like 28 years, I'm into it. I'm excited to see what this world is going to be like, if the zombies are even a threat anymore, or if the threat is really just the people. And I'm also kind of
Ooh.
curious because zombie movies are a perfect way to bring in social commentary, which, as you guys know, if done right, I think social commentary can enhance a story, make it even better, because it's something that you can kind of relate to the real world. So I'm curious to see if there's going to be social commentary in this movie, and if there is, how it's done.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I'm a big fan of social commentary. It always just hits a little bit closer to home, and I think those type of movies just make you generally just think about like just your humanity and how we look at each other. Honestly, do you think, Stuart, if you were planted in this world, you think you would have survived?
Ooh, zombies in 28 days later. I forgot. Are they like really fast zombies, or are they like
Really
walking?
fast.
They are.
They
Ooh,
will
maybe
chase
not.
your ass down.
It would depend on where I was when this apocalypse started, because if I'm out in the open, I am not ashamed to admit I have very bad cardio when it comes to running. I like to think I'm pretty well built in terms of strength, not in terms of stamina though. So I think if I had to run for my life, I'd be screwed.
I would recommend checking out 28 weeks later. I think that's a great example of just the speed of some of these zombies. I don't know if they're climbers, but you definitely have to be a sprinter to
Mhm.
outchase these things for sure. So yeah, your cardio would definitely be tested to say the least. But I
Like
mean, you're okay.
like I think the fastest zombies I could survive are Zombieland zombies. So if they're faster than
Uh,
Zombieland zombies, I'd be screwed.
yeah, I think when I think of 28 days later, the and 28 weeks later, I'm very much like World War Z vibes in the sense like they will chase your
Mm.
ass down type of thing, right? Zombieland, I could probably survive in that area. But yeah, you tell me 28 days later, no, I'm pretty sure I think I'm probably screwed. But I will be interested. You're right. With 28 years later, after a pandemic, or not after a pandemic, but after this happens, I do wonder what society looks like. Are there pockets of humanity that is still survived? Is there a city out there that's reestablished itself but has some sort of barrier around it? Like I would be kind of curious to see how they've navigated after all these years and what that world just kind of looks like right now. So I think this is a perfect opportunity to certainly come back. I think just horror movies, thrillers in general have been really good these past couple of years. So I think this is a good time. The idea of them boosting the budget for this film
Mhm.
is an interesting one, considering the first one was 8 million. The second one, I think they said they doubled to like 16 million. But this one coming in at about $75 million. I will say I'm at least thankful that it's under the $100 million mark. I still think at 75 million, as long as your script is good, your character development is there, if you can attach Cillian Murphy to this project as well, I think you can definitely easily do more than 75 million and get your box office budget back and make a profit. Do you think 75 million is a little bit too high for a movie like this in today's day and age, or are you happy that it's at least coming under the 100 million mark?
I think that's a perfect budget for a movie like this, especially if they want to be a lot more ambitious, and they want to like kind of I don't want to say full on travel, like going from one city to the next, but if they want to like uh, you know do multiple locations and things like that, I think yeah,
That's a good
80
point.
million is a, or 75 million is a good amount.
Marcelino does say, which streaming services has the 28 franchise I'm interested in seeing? Um, I brought this up. It does say watch 28 days later on Prime Video. Oh, it says this video is currently unavailable to watch in your location. Um, so I don't know if it's,
VPN.
yeah, maybe just change your VPN if you have it. Maybe you'll be able to access it. Um, watch 28 weeks later streaming on Hulu. So the sequel, 28 weeks later, may be on Hulu for you to check out. But yeah, you might have to try and find 28 days later. I don't know if it's available. Apple TV, maybe 28 days later, it might be there as well. So yeah, definitely some options there. All right, y'all. But yeah, let us know your thoughts, man. How do you feel about the return to the 28 days and weeks franchise with 28 years later? Do you want to see Cillian Murphy return? Would you like to see another actor take on another leading role? Go ahead and certainly let me know your thoughts in the comment section box below. And with that, Stuart, we got one more topic that we're going to be breaking down for you guys before we get into live viewer questions. So let's go ahead and wrap up this show, man, by boldly going where no man has gone before. And that means Star Trek is back in the news. Look, we've been patiently waiting for this damn Star Trek 4 to happen with Chris Pine and the crew. I feel like ever since Star Trek Beyond, movement for another Star Trek film has been just a roller coaster ride, to say the least. And so while it's been a while since we've seen Star Trek on the big screen, Robert Kirkman and Paramount have done an amazing job of establishing Star Trek back on television in streaming form. I mean, man, we've gotten Star Trek Discovery, we've gotten Strange New Worlds, we've gotten Picard. I think we're supposed to be getting like a Star Trek movie with Michelle, was it Michelle Yeoh? I believe that she's going to be coming back and doing a film also. I think last week, Stuart, you talked about the idea that maybe Patrick Stewart might be doing a Picard movie as well. We got Lower Decks. I mean, there's just so much Star Trek content out there. But me as a moviegoer, I've been highly waiting and anticipating a return to the big screen. And this week, ladies and gentlemen, we might have something. We might have some movement in that regards. So let's go ahead and bring this up. This comes to us from the Hollywood Reporter, saying that a new Star Trek movie in the works at Paramount from the Andor director. It says the film will take place decades before J.J. Abrams' 2009 feature. So this is very much turning out to be a prequel, seemingly set in this J.J. Abrams world that he wind up rebooting. So it says, after years of stops and starts, Paramount is making a step towards returning to Star Trek to the big screen. Toby Haynes, who directed episodes of the Star Wars Andor series, will helm the new feature, with Seth Grahame-Smith writing. The plot is said to take place decades before the events of the 2009 Star Trek, which J.J. Abrams helmed. Abrams' Bad Robot will produce the movie, which the studio is describing as an expansion of its Trek universe. Trek has largely lived on the world of TV and streaming in recent years, and they talk about Strange New Worlds, Discovery, Lower Decks, Picard, which wrapped last year. It also says that Star Trek Beyond, the most recent Trek film, hit theaters back in 2016, starring Chris Pine and the crew. And Paramount is still developing a fourth Star Trek to feature that cast and described as the final chapter for the crew. So understand here, we have two Star Trek movies clearly in the works right now. One that's set decades before the 2009 J.J. Abrams Star Trek with that crew. And then we also have a fourth that's going to be following the events of Star Trek Beyond. It does say that Paramount has spent years figuring out a new big screen take for Star Trek after Beyond was soft at the box office. It says that film never, there was a film that was announced, a Star Trek 4 to star Chris Hemsworth, but that film never came to fruition. Filmmakers such as Quentin Tarantino and Noah Hawley also took stabs at developing their own related takes, and none of that certainly caught ground as well. Producer J.J. Abrams made a surprise announcement. A new installment was in the works with the Pine-led crew that would be shooting by the end of the year, a move that even took the cast by surprise. Matt Shackman was on board to direct that film, but departed to go ahead and direct Fantastic Four. So it's a little bit up in the air. Seth Grahame-Smith, known as the author of Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter and the writer for Lego Batman movie, is apparently set to go ahead and write this prequel series that's also directed by Toby Haynes from Andor. So a lot of moving pieces here, Stuart. But according to them, we've got 2 Star Trek movies in development. It feels like this prequel might be further along than the Star Trek 4, simply because, look, we have a writer, we have a director on board now. It feels like that's the direction they might be going in. Star Trek 4 clearly still in development, but it seems like development hell at this point. So I am curious as to where they go from here. I know you're a big Trekkie as well. I probably should have invited Will from Scene and Nerd to be on here, because I know he's a big Trekkie as well. I have to pick his brain on what he thinks of this news also. But let me throw this to you, Stuart. Star Trek prequel, Star Trek 4. Are you excited for either of them? What do you think this movie is going to be like? Let me know your thoughts, man.
Well, my first question is, so they say it's a prequel to the Calvin timeline, but they also say it takes place decades before. But the Calvin timeline wasn't that like it didn't start that many years ago. Like, I mean, technically, I guess a couple of decades, like what Kirk, I want to say in like the movie would be like maybe late 20s. So okay, yeah. So sorry, what I'm getting at basically is that would it actually be a prequel to the Calvin timeline, or would it just be a prequel to Star Trek in general? Because if it takes place before that timeline shift, technically this would take place in the original Star Trek universe too.
I get you.
That's what I'm getting at, yeah. So I am kind of curious about that aspect of the movie, like when does this take place? But yeah, I am excited because I love Star Trek. I enjoyed the J.J. Abrams movies. I wasn't the biggest fan of Star Trek Beyond. Like, I thought that one was okay, but for me, I really like the first two, Into Darkness, and the first one just called Star Trek, and yeah, I think that exploring this universe through a prequel and a sequel is a fun idea. I do have a lot of, I guess I'm just more intrigued about this prequel, especially with the fact that they got the showrunner for Andor directing it. So I am really excited. Hopefully they hopefully we get to see like a fun new angle to Star Trek, the same way we get to see a new angle to Star Wars. So I hope we get something like that. And finding out that there's still a 4th movie in development, that gives me a little bit of hope that we could still get that Tarantino Star Trek movie, which for context on that one, because we actually have some information about it. At first, I was not excited when I heard that Tarantino was like trying to develop a Star Trek film that would have been rated R, until I heard the pitch for it. The pitch is that it would have taken place in the Calvin universe, so you would have had Chris Pine as Captain Kirk still, but it would have been basically that universe's version of the episode A Piece of Action, which is basically an episode where they go to a planet that is basically, it develops because I think there was like a 1920s Chicago gangster book that was like on that planet, so the entire planet evolves to basically fit the world of that book. So you have an entire planet basically of Chicago style gangsters from the early 1900s, and I just think that would have been perfect for Tarantino, like that, but like on the big screen, that episode, but on the big screen and with a different cast and crew, and R-rated. I think that would have been right up Tarantino's alley. So I do hope we still get that movie in the future. But as for this prequel, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to get more information about like what it's going to be about, who it's following, and again, a little more clarity on if it is a prequel taking place decades before. Does that mean it's not necessarily a prequel just to the Calvin timeline, but also a prequel to Star Trek, and also like how it relates to other Star Trek prequels, like because this would still, depending on when this takes place, I could see this, still taking place like maybe a little bit after Enterprise, things like that. So I'm kind of curious about how much in the past this has taken place. Yeah.
I think if anything, I love your commentary on it, especially you coming out talking about the timeline. I'm like, man, he's such a Trekkie nerd. You could just tell. But and while I don't necessarily know timelines and things like that, how it all kind of plays out, I'm really fascinated in this, honestly. One of the reasons why I'm curious as to why their direction that they went in here, as far as like, hey, let's make a prequel. And you could cut me off at any time, Stuart, because again, I'm not too familiar with the timelines and things like that, or if this would even sort of make sense. But I do wonder if the success of something like Star Trek Brave, Strange New Worlds has anything to do with it. I do believe that this is the crew, I believe, before like Captain Kirk's time and things like that. I have been always really curious to learn more about Pike, Captain Pike, even though I haven't watched the series itself. He is an influential character even in the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie. So the idea of maybe giving us a Captain Pike as a leader of a starship vessel. I would be interested if that's the direction that they kind of want to go, and if they've seen how well it maybe is done on Paramount, maybe they're like, you know what, this would be a great way for us to bring Pike to the big screen and give us sort of fresh storytelling if that's the direction that we want to go. You think that's a possibility, Stuart, or is my timeline completely off?
No, you're spot on in that being a possibility. I personally would hope they didn't do that, only because you would then have that issue like that we kind of had with DC, like very early on when you had the movie The Suicide Squad that came out. You had there, it was just way too easy to compare characters that were going on in the Suicide Squad compared to the characters that were going on in the Arrowverse at the time. And
I see
I
what you
don't know,
mean.
I feel like if you're doing a franchise, you want to try to keep them as separated as possible, so you don't have to risk people constantly
So you
making unfair comparisons.
I get you. So, like, if Strange New Worlds is going on and they still use Captain Pike, but in the movie form, you would have those Star Trek fans butting heads on that. But he's different in the show, and that's not how it
Yeah.
happened. Type. Okay, I can kind of see where you're going with that. Also, I would hope that they would be able to kind of separate the two, though, honestly, because I do want to see Adventures of Pike on the big screen. But I do wonder if maybe that's one of the reasons they decided to go with that direction of giving us a prequels, because of maybe something like the success of Strange New Worlds, or maybe I'm underestimating the its popularity on Paramount. I do think that if anything, we'll probably end up getting this movie first before Star Trek 4. Although I'm very much eager to see Chris Pine and the rest of that crew at least come back for one more. I think they've got one more story in them. But like you, Stuart, Star Trek 4 just Star Trek Beyond, I should say, just didn't do it for me. I think it was written by Simon Pegg, or maybe he had some influence in kind of putting it together as well. But it just didn't quite hit home the way that I certainly wanted it to. So I would like to see them eventually give us a sequel. But I think Star Trek belongs on the big screen. I will say this: after watching Andor, and I don't know what episodes Toby Haynes directed from Andor, but I thought the direction work in Andor was marvelous. I mean, whether that be sort of the breakout, like the um what's the word I'm looking for? Like, you got the prison sequences, them having to break out from that. That's all pretty fascinating. When I think of Andor, I also think of like their first espionage mission on that planet, of trying to not only get the ship, but I think they were trying to get a bunch of like Imperial credits and things like that. Also, that whole sequence, the way it was filmed and the pacing of it, I thought was just really intense and made you feel like you were there. And then even seeing the ship itself kind of going through the hazardous like comments or the meteor shower that everybody was looking at during that event, that was epic in and of itself, to kind of see his work, directing work in space and utilizing spaceships and CGI and stuff. I mean, so I think that's a really great director to certainly land on in regards to visually capturing what you need. I am a little concerned when it comes to the script writer. I mean, if you're telling me this is the guy from Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter, and another movie I didn't really care about so much, it's like, but can he write Star Trek? And I
Mhm.
really need him to be able to write Star Trek, because I just think you got to come to it from a very intellectual perspective and just have a completely different mindset. So I am a little bit worried, writer wise, director wise, though. I think this is a big win. So I'm here for it, man. I will be interested to see what direction that they wind up going. But Star Trek needs to be on the big screen, very much like Star Wars certainly does. So I hope that they finally get their stuff together and we actually get ourselves this project at some point in time.
I think she's too famous for us. Not to mention, I feel like she definitely knows way more about Star Trek than I ever could, because there's still like seasons or series that I haven't seen. Like I still haven't even seen Enterprise or a Voyager all the way through yet. So I got we got to get a little more subscribers before we can collab with Jesse at the moment. As for this one, okay, so personally, I don't think I'm worthy of schooling anyone in Star Trek, but if you do want to learn more about Star Trek and you're not really sure where to start, there is one YouTube channel that I went to. This is what kind of encouraged me to, because basically, before last year, my Star Trek knowledge was Next Generation and then very select episodes of the original series and then all the movies. But then very beginning, I started this very beginning of last year. I started my binge of Star Trek, and that's what made me go from like decide which series I want to do. So that's anyways, a lot of Star Trek that I watched came from really last year mostly, and it all came because of this YouTube channel, Rowan J. Coleman. He does this Star Trek retrospective series, and so what I did is I just kind of like watched through a few selective videos that he did, and depending on the seasons he was talking about, the ones he was describing, that's what I kind of used to select which one sounded the most interesting to me. So that's why after Next Generation, I went straight to what did I watch? I think
Did you go
like
Voyager?
Lower Decks.
Oh,
Yeah, no, I actually haven't finished or haven't done Voyager yet. But yeah, I think I went from Next Generation to no, that's right. It was Deep Space Nine, and then I watched
makes
all the
sense.
current ones, including Lower Decks and Discovery and Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, growing up for me, I was definitely a Next Generation guy. My stepdad used to watch Deep Space Nine a lot, and I just could not get into that show. I don't know what it was about it. Definitely have a different vibe. I think it was because of the whole base. I was very much a home base kind of element, and I really always loved the traversing on a ship, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe that's one of the reasons why I was a big fan of Star Trek Voyager. Like for me, like if as much as I love Captain Picard, for me, Catherine Janeway is my captain. Like, 'cause that's really like my prime of soaking in Star Trek was Star Trek Voyager, and my captain being Captain Janeway. I thought they had some really great characters in there as well. Probably one of the more diverse crews that I've seen in Star Trek. Not to say that they've never been diverse for sure. I mean, you can look back, but for me, Star Trek Voyager was just a different animal and a different beast. And I fell in love with Seven of Nine in there
Mm-hmm.
easily. But yeah, so I wanted to check out Enterprise. I never watched Enterprise, even though I'm a big Scott Bakula fan from his time in Quantum Leap. But I never watched Enterprise. And I did watch like the first two seasons of Discovery. But there's a lot more Star Trek I need to embrace for sure.
Yeah, if you liked Discovery season 2 specifically, you'll love Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, it looks good. That's definitely on my radar to certainly check out whenever I can. So maybe one of these days I'll just be getting that Star Trek itch again, and I'll do a deep dive like you did, Stuart. But yeah, maybe we need to get you and Will to do like some Star Trek reviews for movies together or some series from time to time. Because I think that'd be really cool for the channel. But
We did collaborate on the season finale of Strange New World season 2. That was a lot of fun to pick his brain of Star Trek, because he definitely knew a lot more than me, so he was able to kind of correct me on a couple of things here and there. But I loved geeking out with him about certain things, especially with the new actor that played Scotty in the season finale. They got a new Scotty in the show,
that's cool.
and he's great. He is great.
Yeah, he's Will is definitely a aficionado of Star Trek for sure. I think that's like his bread and butter along with Star Wars. But yeah, we'll keep you guys posted if we ever do any more Star Trek content here for the channel. But let us know your thoughts. More Star Trek movies, a prequel on the way to J.J. Abrams' 2009 Star Trek, and Star Trek 4 potentially still in the process of being made. Hopefully that'll get out of developmental hell at some point in time. But guys, let us know your thoughts in the comment section box below. And I think with that out of the way, Stuart, that will wrap up all of our main topics today, guys. So thank you very much, y'all, for certainly joining us, letting us pick your brain into some of the comments that you had about some of these particular stories. Again, these are just simply our A+ opinions, but we honestly, genuinely enjoy hearing your opinions on things also, and being able to bounce ideas off of you guys as well. So thank you guys so much for that. With that out of the way, though, I think y'all know what time it is.
Now, everybody, it is time for live viewer questions.
And if you ever have a live viewer question, guys, we usually will drop a post over on our YouTube page. If not Friday night, then definitely on Saturday. So if you want to go ahead and ever pop in a question, just simply go over to our YouTube page like so. Go over to our community tab right here, and you will find a live viewer question post. And today we've got ourselves 6 questions. And before we go, we'll probably refresh this just to make sure we get all the questions properly. Because I think last week I went and tried to pull up all the questions to it, and I think we missed one, but I refreshed the page like twice. So it was kind of odd that we had missed some. So if I miss any, I do apologize, guys. But let's go ahead and pull this up. This is from Peg C. Hey, Adam, hope you and your family are doing well. Couple of questions. What are your thoughts on the original Muppet Babies cartoon never landing on any streaming service due to studio copyright? So he actually presented an article here from movieweb.com that says Muppet Babies will never be available on streaming due to studio copyright claims, says cartoonist, which is a little bit of a bummer. I actually grew up on Muppet Babies. It says one of the biggest questions asked by Muppet franchise is why the 80s animated series Muppet Babies is not streaming on Disney. As a hugely popular addition to the franchise, originally aired from 84 to 91, Muppet Babies blended clips from a variety of live action movies and TV shows with the animated stories of infant versions of Kermit, Piggy, Gonzo, Animal, and the rest of the Muppets. However, the innovative format is what seems to be preventing the series from being aired. One of the cartoonists, Guy Gilchrist, who worked on the Jim Henson project, recently appeared at Los Angeles Comic-Con and was asked this question. He says, besides using stuff that was in the public domain, like the silent stuff that we used in the dream sequences, remember the editing on that was incredibly wonderful. We used a lot of clips from a lot of different things, including Raiders of the Lost Ark, Star Wars, and all of that. Jim Henson was very good with George Lucas. George came in and worked on Labyrinth with Jim, and that was not the first collaboration. Their first collaboration was they were across the street from each other. Jim was filming the Muppets and George was doing Star Wars across the street. Yoda didn't work, so Jim, Frank, and Kathy fixed Yoda. Then Steven Spielberg was also a very dear friend, and Jim fixed E.T. because E.T. didn't work. So yeah, it looks like some copyright issues. He says there is something that caused several episodes of the Muppet Show to be held back. And he says, that's why I'm sorry to say you will not see the original Muppet Babies. And it's a question I get asked the most. I had a lot to do with the babies. I know how much you guys love them and would love to have them back, but I don't really know a way that it will ever happen. It's copyrights and trademarks and that sort of thing, unfortunately. And that's a real bummer to me, Stuart, because I love this show. And I would agree. I think I really appreciated how they integrated some of the live action things, whether it was something they were watching on television, whether it was dream sequences where they kind of like placed themselves into those kind of situations and stuff. So I can see that being an issue, but that's a little bit of a bummer. I don't know how you would work around something like that, but maybe there's just so many studios that have different copyrights that it's like if they were to air it, there would be like chunks of the episode that would just be missing or wouldn't make any sense, unfortunately. But that's a little bit of a bummer.
I've said this before when it came to Batgirl and when they wrote it out to get a tax write-off. And I don't know if there's like a specific word for this, but basically just law that revolves around the film industry. I think there's a lot of things that are super dated about these laws. And one of them is the idea of copyrights. Like when you get like the rights to either a song or the rights to a specific clip to put in your movie or your TV show in this particular case, I think the idea of putting a time limit on that copyright is so stupid. I mean, I get that this was a law back in the day, because back then the idea of home releases, taking off the way they have now, just it didn't comprehend with anyone at the time. But now, not only do we have home releases, we have digital releases, which means getting a hold of things is like easier than ever. So with that, you got to make some adjustments in the law in that kind of area. Like, people who want to watch like shows like the Muppets Babies should have a right to be able to purchase it. And the people that they bought the rights from for those exclusive, or for those clips, like when they use clips from Star Wars or other movies, there shouldn't be like you have the rights to use it for like a year, and then after that you can no longer air this episode. Things like that. I think contracts like that should be voided. I don't think those should be allowed anymore. I think that once you give the rights for someone else to use a sample of your, material, it should be like, that should be concrete, and shouldn't be that should be set in stone, basically. And I'm not saying that they should be able to use it whenever they want. I'm saying they should be able to, when they have already used it, they should be able to use that sample for that episode, for the specific purpose as many times as they want. Like, I think that's just so stupid, that's a factor that's holding it back. The other thing too is, okay, so I didn't watch a lot of Muppet Babies, so I can't say for sure, but from what I understand, when they use those clips, it was for the purpose of it was always for a creative purpose for the episode, which means that it doesn't even fall under copyright to begin with. That's fair use. That's something that people on YouTube do all the time and get paid a lot of money for, because they're allowed to. Because again, there's a difference between taking a clip and then just, claiming it as your own and copywriting it and using it, like whether it's the format of a review or a parody or something. Again, that's just fair use. That's not copyright. So no, I think that's really, really stupid that they released Muppet Babies because of that.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you also, man. I'm a little bit bummed about their choice there, but I agree with you. He also says, "What are your thoughts on the movie The Man Who Laughs that inspired the Joker character becoming public domain?" So it says it was The Man Who Laughs is a 1928 film that helped inspire the iconic Joker character, will enter domain on Monday, January 1st. So very much like Steamboat Willie, that is an open domain as well. That's interesting. I don't think I've ever seen the movie, but I know what it's inspired from. Give it another week, Stuart, before they make a Man Who Laughs horror film. But yeah, I don't know too much about the movie itself to really have an opinion, but I'm glad it's in public domain now, though.
I think if Asylum is smart, they'll do a remake of The Man Who Laughs, but make sure that it gets released right, like maybe the week before Joker 2 comes out.
2.
I think that's what Asylum, because Asylum's like a company that does that kind of stuff. They release like what they refer to as mockbusters, and they'll usually come out like within the same month of like the actual movie. So I think this is a good opportunity for them if they decide to take it.
Let's see here. The next question comes from Jessica Fryman. Is Spider-Woman still going to get her own movie? And if the new Avatar action series is a success, could they do a live action version of Legend of Korra? Oh, that's a good question.
I think so.
You think idea of a Legend of Korra is on the table?
Yeah, it's all going to depend on how Avatar: The Last Airbender does. But if they do all 3 seasons from the original show and they do it well, then yeah, I don't see any reason why they couldn't make a Legend of Korra series as well, a live action Legend of Korra.
As far as a Spider-Woman, they did announce this last year, I believe. There's an article from Comic Book Resources. Spider-Woman is finally getting her own movie. Sony Entertainment announces a brand new Spider-Woman film is officially in the works and may be coming sooner than fans are expecting. We are fresh off of Madam Web, set to go ahead and drop this upcoming February. So I do think that maybe at some point in time, maybe they will just use that and branch off into a Spider-Woman film. Producer AV Arad teased that moviegoers will see a Spider-Woman movie sooner rather than later. I know they have like a Silk project in the works also, but I believe that's animated. So in the form of live action Spider Woman, I'm expecting one. I would be curious, like, are we gonna get like a Jessica Drew concept of a Spider Woman, with Madam Web introducing us to several Spider Women, or at least a couple of Spider Women that have used that moniker, like Julia Carpenter, that's being played by Sydney Sweeney. We've already seen her in costume that they wind up releasing this week. That's a Spider Woman. So I am curious if Madam Web is successful, if that's the route that they would go, or if they would even take a leap and introduce us to a Jessica Drew Spider Woman and just a new addition to that family. So yeah, I don't know, Jessica. It is definitely getting its own movie. I just don't know when it's set to be released, but that was announced less than a year ago, so it's probably still rather fresh. Um, let's see here. Marcelino Vasquez says Zoe Dal has three questions here. Zoe Saldana said that Guardians 3 was the last time she'll play Gamora, but she does want her character to be recast so future stories can be told. Do you think they should recast her? And could this apply to the rest of the Guardians team? Well, I will say, I think Guardians 3 has at least established that we've got ourselves a whole new Guardians team. So a lot of the characters that we saw in the past certainly may not come back, with the exception of maybe the guy that voices Rocket. Maybe he might come back to do some voice work, but I can't remember who else was on that Guardians team at the end. But like Drax, no. Chris Pratt, would Chris Pratt come back?
I think he's the only one confirmed to be coming back.
Oh, Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
Um, and then outside of that, I mean, they've kind of established a brand new team. Am I missing something though, Stuart, for Guardians 3?
I mean, I could see her coming back because she's working with the Ravengers now. So if they wanted to bring her back, or if they also wanted to use the version of her from What If, they could also bring her back there. As for, whether or not I'd want her to be recasted, yeah, I personally, I know that a lot of people get really attached to certain actors playing a certain character, and I get that. Some actors do it so well you just can't see anyone else in the role. But that all being said, I don't think it's fair to the actor themselves to like hold that like kind of a thing to them, being like, oh yeah, no one else should be able to play this character, because then you kind of guilt that actor into continuing this role even if they don't want to do it, pretty much. So, and it also means that if that actor does decide to quit for whatever reason, I don't like the idea of never being able to come back to that character. Suddenly we have an incomplete character because an actor decided that they want to dipped out. Cough, cough, Batwoman, cough, cough, So things like that. So I think that, I feel like ever since Iron Man, I blame Iron Man for this, because with a couple of exceptions, it feels like people are just way too afraid to recast characters. Like whenever there's an issue with an actor, they just want to write that character out and then just, have someone else like take up the torch. And I don't think that needs to, happen all the time. I think that there's no reason you can't just recast, honestly.
Yeah, I saw a joke by Cat Williams the other day talking about them how they handled Black Panther.
Mhm.
And he was saying like Black Panther is a character. And he was saying, he's like, why is it that when he's like he died off screen? He's like, Black Panther didn't die in real life. He's like Black Panther's not a real character, sort of thing. He's like, just because the person that played him died in real life doesn't mean that the character has to die. He's like, look at Superman. He says Superman's got 6 different people that have played him over time, right? He's like, look at Batman. Batman continues and they just keep recasting the character. He's like, why couldn't we have done that to Black Panther? So that was Cat Williams joking around about it. And so my thing is, I agree with you. I do think sometimes they do get a little bit too scared to recast characters. In Black Panther's situation, look, for me, it was one of those things where I was okay with either or. If his family wants him to be recast, if his family doesn't, yada yada. Like I really didn't have a really like set firm belief in whatever direction that Marvel certainly should have gone. But when it comes to a character like Gamora, honestly, I'm completely okay with that if they want to go ahead and recast her. Marcelino does say, look, Vin Diesel could return as Groot. Plus, Karen Gillan has said that she would want to start a relationship between her character and Chris Pratt's character. Whether or not that's something that would come to fruition, they definitely teased it in Guardians 3. But if Karen Gillan wants to come back and play her role again as Nebula, sure. So I do see a world that we live in where some characters come back and return as, those actors return, and then other ones, maybe Gamora, if she does pop up, doesn't have as big of a role, but they recast her. I could see that happening as well. But look, as long as I'll just leave that up to Zoe Saldana. I'm sure there's other things that she clearly would want to do in her career. So, like you said, I'm not gonna hold it against them if they don't want to. But I think for me, Gamora is a character I'm okay with if they recast, especially if they bring in like the what if version of her at some point in time. I wouldn't mind that being recast at all.
Mm-hmm.
Marcel also says, we know that Megaforce was a complete letdown. However, something that more and more people have been realizing is that the fans had their expectations way too unrealistically high. Megaforce adapted Gokaiger, which brought in so many past actors and made connections to past lore. What a lot of people forget is that Power Rangers doesn't have the same budget as Super Sentai has, so they couldn't accomplish it to the same degree. Now, that doesn't mean that there wasn't bad writing, but I think the fans need to be held accountable to some degree for putting their expectations too unrealistically high.
I could kind of like halfway agree with that, like in the sense that, yeah, I guess the idea of having every Ranger that was returning during the big finale having a big role in that big finale, that would be very unreasonable. No one could accomplish something like that. That'd be too much. But that doesn't excuse, like you even say in your comment itself, it doesn't excuse the bad writing, because even if it wasn't, if we were to take away the anniversary aspect of Megaforce, it's still not a good like season. It's still just not a well written season.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree to a certain extent. I mean, I'm trying to remember what it was like then reviewing Megaforce during that time and what the fandom was like during that time. While I know everybody had their favorites that they certainly wanted to return, I don't know if people were unrealistically expecting everybody to return. I mean, I want to think that we kind of knew how cheap Saban and them were already.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for me, and look, if fans were too unrealistic when it comes to their expectations, look, I would agree. Do think that some certainly may have been, but that doesn't excuse the execution of how that was all sort of pulled off. Like, whose bright idea was it to put Goseiger and Gokaiger together into one series,
Mm-hmm.
right? And kind of blend them all together? Whose idea was it that you're going to have these characters come back and have no dialogue for half of them, or like you couldn't do more original content for these episodes instead of
Mm-hmm.
relying so heavily on Super Sentai, right? So while I do think, yes, we as fans may have gotten some of our expectations too high, I still look at Legendary Battle as a fail for the fandom in the sense that they didn't do more or execute it well that I think they could have, and not have necessarily ballooned the budget to where it would have just been way too much for them to be able to do. I think several lines of dialogue letting us know what people have been up to. I don't think that's too much of an ask or too much of a reach for fans. Now, if fans expected to have 20 returning characters, then maybe. But aside from people not getting some of their favorites to come back, I think a lot of the fault of the mega fail comes from just his execution and how cheap Saban was during that time. So I still will put more of the fail on the production company and the production staff for that.
Yeah, and then the last thing I'll say about it is that when Megaforce was coming out, I'm now remembering, like, this came out when Power Rangers was starting to actually get hype again, because it was a big deal when Nickelodeon started airing Power Rangers Samurai, because people were talking about it. But this being an anniversary season and hyping up all the costumes that people were familiar with, this was the one that got everyone talking about Power Rangers again. And
Mhm.
keep in mind, when Megaforce started, I was in high school and people were talking about this. And then when it ended and Dino Charge started, not a single person would talk about Power Rangers again. Because I think it all came down to the fact that people watched this season who hadn't seen Power Rangers since like the beginning. They watched it with a lot of hype, thinking that this was going to be a really big lore kind of season. So whether or not it had all the main characters, like, you know, playing a big role in the season wouldn't really matter, because this was supposed to be kind of a huge legacy season. So it was still in some way, it felt like fans were watching it, expecting it to kind of celebrate what came before. But again, like, I think the biggest failure about Megaforce was that as a standalone season, it's poorly written. As an anniversary season, it's a huge letdown. So it does two things, and it does both of them really, really poorly, unfortunately.
Let's see here. He also says, recently I came across a Snyder fan who still clamors for the Snyderverse to be restored. It even criticized Warner Brothers for shitting on their fans and claiming they spread fake news about fans being toxic. I told him that there were toxic Snyder fans, and then if he doesn't classify himself as one of those, then he shouldn't be offended. I agree with you. He says, I even try to tell him that he should get mad that toxic fans exist because they give good Snyder fans a bad reputation, but he refused to listen to me and kept saying that there are no toxic Snyder fans, and brought up the fact that Snyder fans donated money to suicide prevention as his proof. He also told me that the only toxic fans that there are people who think Snyder's work, his fans, and were glad that WB fired him. What do you think when you hear this? I mean, look, it's not to say all Snyder fans are toxic. I'm sure that there are some great Snyder fans that donated money to suicide prevention as proof and yada, yada, yada. That's cool. I'm glad that they did great things. But let's not fool ourselves here. Okay. Toxic Snyder fans still follow this man around for years after he's left and departed. The man's been doing a ton of other content like Army of the Dead, Rebel Moon, and I'm sure half of those people that claim to be Snyder fans probably haven't even watched any of that stuff, and so fixated on him coming back to this DCU Snyderverse thing. And so, yeah, there definitely are toxic fans out there, but again, that's not to categorize all Snyderverse fans as toxic. I was a Snyderverse fan. I was one champion, restore the Snyderverse, right? But I also understood the idea, like, look, unfortunately, his story got told. We got his director's cut of Justice League. Was there more story to be told? Absolutely. But his story was told. We should be thankful as Snyder fans that he got to tell the story that he got to tell. And you know what? I still follow him around to this day for content that he creates. I really enjoyed his Army of the Dead movie. I'm like 2/3 through Rebel Moon, and I find myself enjoying Rebel Moon also. So, you know, I do think, and that's me enjoying those films and not shitting on his time with Warner Brothers, or shitting on Warner Brothers for the way that they handle things, as much as I'm disappointed in the way that they certainly did. Some Snyder fans can clear their mind and certainly move on, and others just simply can't. And so you just got to leave it at that sometimes, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Nothing wrong with being a Snyder fan. I mean, any fan base actually altogether. Nothing wrong with it if it's a fan base that has toxicity, because unfortunately that's every fan base. But you can't just claim that there's no toxic fans just because you yourself may not be a toxic fan. You can't just claim that, oh, my fandom doesn't have any toxic fans because I'm a fan of this. It's like, I'd like to think I'm not a toxic Star Wars fan, but I'm not going to try to claim that they don't exist.
Right. And Marshall, I'm not saying that you say all Snyder fans were toxic. I'm saying that feels very much like the mentality that he has, is the idea, the person that you were talking to is a sense that he thinks that there are no Snyder fans that are toxic, and that's just simply not true. There definitely is a fan base of Snyder fans that are not, and some that definitely are. I'm not saying that that's what you were stating, Marcelino. I was just referring to that guy.
Because what you also said about the whole thing about Snyder fans donating to suicide prevention, that was actually a true thing, and that's really awesome. That I don't know how much they made, but I still think the fact that was the thing that happened, I think that's pretty awesome. But again, doesn't take away from the fact that toxic fans in the Snyder community do exist. And Snyder himself acknowledges that toxic fans in his community exist, and he has gone out of his way a couple of times to say he does not condone that kind of stuff.
Doomsday says he's got a couple questions for us too. If Mysterio was never a supervillain, pretty much never doxed Peter, and was definitely successful at becoming the next Iron Man, and everyone, including Peter, celebrated his achievement, what do you think Quentin Beck Mysterio would have done if real threats came to Earth, since all he used were illusions? I mean, he would probably have to create one massive illusion to maybe fool the threat that came to Earth. Maybe he would create an illusion where he would make a gigantic version of himself in some sort of Iron Man suit, like a giant, like almost like a celestial being sort of thing. Created this illusion. I think that would probably immediately remove threats from the Earth. Maybe he could have done that with all his drones and stuff that he kind of put together to create these elaborate illusions. Tony Stark very much wanted to defend the planet with these Ultron droids of his. Maybe Quentin would have done kind of the same thing, but be able to create these huge, elaborate hoaxes that might fool real threats that wind up coming to Earth. Like him now being a celestial being with this armor on or something like that. Who knows? That's the first thing that comes to my mind, though.
Yeah. I don't see him being able to take on any threats on his own. I see
on his own, not on his own.
He would need a team, basically, like, so he could be kind of the diversion person to throw the enemy off guard while like the real heavy hitters actually did something.
Yeah, if that illusion didn't fool him, he might be screwed.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Using the MMPR lineup, which African American Rangers would be your personal Ranger team? So 4 males and 2 females. I definitely got to have TJ as my captain. I'll even give Zato my Green Ranger form. So we're talking 6 characters here.
Because immediately the 3 males, I would want to do TJ, Devin, and Scott. Who would I would oh god, it's really hard to choose for the females because there's a lot that I really like. I'm just gonna go. You know what? I'm just gonna go with keep it old school. I'm gonna go with both Tanya and Aisha together because I don't think they've never been on screen together before, right? No, they've never shared the screen together. Yeah, that would be kind of cool to see, actually.
That would be kind of cool to see. Looking at this, I'm looking at all the African American Power Rangers that we have. Okay. TJ. Okay, so I got 4 males and 2 females. So give me TJ. Give me Zach. Give me Devin. And you picked Scott already?
Yeah. But I picked TJ and Devin, so you pick Scott if you want.
Oh, you picked. I'm sorry. What was your group again? I'm sorry.
Oh, TJ, Scott, and Devin, and then Tanya and Aisha.
See, that's probably what my core would be too. So if I'll go different then, but I will keep TJ because I love TJ. Mm-hmm. Give me TJ. Give me Zach. Give me Ethan, and give me. I'm going to take, you know what? Give me Zato. I'll take Zato too.
Awesome.
As far as females, you know what? I'm going to give Katie some love from Time Force just because she's a fucking powerhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to take Shelby. I'm going to take Shelby from Dino Charge. So that'd be my African American Power Ranger team. Let's see here. Do you feel like Super Mega Force did a pretty dumb job with the tribute episodes? Because the only episodes that felt like tribute episodes were Spirit of the Tiger for Jungle Fury, Samurai Surprise for Samurai, In the Driver's Seat for RPM, and Lions Alliance. But everything else, like Earth Fights Back, was a tribute to SPD, even though it didn't have SPD vibes. Blue Saber Saga was a tribute to Mystic Force, even though it didn't have any magical vibes. And United as One was a tribute to Dino Thunder, even though it didn't have any prehistoric vibes. So yeah, do you feel Super Mega Force did a pretty dumb job with the tribute episodes? I don't remember.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Even if you couldn't get any actors back from those legacy seasons, you still could have written a story that could have fit those seasons thematically. But yeah, the only two that really felt like they were trying at the least, I'm not even saying they were that good, but I will say Samurai Surprise and Spirit of the Tiger felt like they were trying. But that's about it. When it came to all the other stuff, I mean, okay, I'll actually give Wild Force's episode a bit of credit. It felt like, again, they were trying with Wild Force, but when it came to RPM, that legacy episode, when it came to SPD's legacy episode, yeah, no, it felt like they were just like, their own unrelated plot line that they just had to like put these Rangers or they had to put those seasons, like elements from those seasons into because of the footage. It wasn't because it actually made sense for the story, especially with the RPM one, because they ended up using a lot of footage from the Sentai. And the thing is, RPM and the Sentai it's based on are very, 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 very different from each other. So when we visit that world, it looks nothing like RPM because they're using footage from like, the Sentai version, which again was totally different. So yeah. So in other words, yeah, I do agree. They are all complete letdowns completely.
Real quick from Marcelino, his team he would put together. He says his team would consist of Connor, Amelia, Kelsey, Preston, was it Tyzon, and Xander. I think all of those would have fun interactions with each other.
Wait, who am I thinking of? Wait, which season? Which Xander?
I don't know. I don't think he put together an African American group.
It was just a team. Okay, I was like, okay, that makes way more sense.
Yeah, because I think Doomsday, right? He did ask us which African American Rangers would be your personal Power Ranger team. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I answered the question properly. Okay. And last couple questions. Blossom, what's up, Blossom? Since the new Sentai is on the way, which theme in Super Sentai do you want to see after that? Oh God. What is this? This season's like race cars again. It's a car theme. Is it mixed? I wonder if there's a blend of themes in this one. I don't know. I still would like a sports theme if they could ever pull something like that off. I fear that would turn into like a comedy series though. I wouldn't mind them doing some bug related theme. Unless that's kind of been done. I still kind of want cyborgs, but we kind of did the whole robot thing a little bit with Zenkaiger. So I don't know. I don't know what route I want them to go. Did you have any themes in mind, Stuart?
Got a couple. I love your sports theme idea. Actually, I think that could actually be a lot of fun. $10 says that the Red Ranger would be a baseball player. It's very, very, very big sport in Japan. So I like that idea. That would be a lot of fun. The other one that I really want to see, but you would have to have like a collaboration with Toho and Toei. But if they ever did want to collaborate, a kaiju themed Sentai. So you got the Red Ranger with a helmet that very much resembles Godzilla, like maybe even have like kind of Godzilla's eyes for the visors and that kind of stuff. Then maybe the Sixth Ranger could be King Ghidorah, like a King Ghidorah themed Gold Ranger.
That would be so fire.
Yeah, that would be so cool. Like
that would be incredible.
And then, of course, then you get the Zords that would look just like, the kaiju counterparts, but like mechanized. That's what I want to see. I don't think it'll ever happen because, with studios like that working together, there's always disagreements and it never works out. Like even like when Toho tried to work with the studio that did Gamera, neither studio could agree on who would win the fight. They couldn't agree to have it just end in a draw. So the Godzilla versus Gamera movie just never happened. So I don't see it happening with Super Sentai, but if it did, that would be amazing.
Marcelino's got a great one here. He says he would like to an aquatic theme. I think that would be pretty
Oh
badass.
yeah.
He says, or go back to mythology, like how Dire Ranger was Chinese mythology themed. I wouldn't mind a carnival themed season either. That
Ooh,
would be a carnival theme would be pretty badass, I think.
that'd be kind of
Um,
cool. Yeah.
I remember years ago on A Plus More Phenomenal, I think I did like my top 5 next Super Sentai themes that I would like to see have. And the concept of Chinese mythology crept back up in there. I think for me, when I made my announcement, I think it was a mixture of um, mythology, but also a, like I'm gonna say combat sports, but just like mixed martial arts in general. So
Hmm.
very much like how Die Ranger definitely not only focused on Chinese mythology, but they also integrated that with like different fighting styles. I would like to see that more modernized. So maybe it would be like a was it Wing Chun karate? Like was it one? I can't remember, like the drunken master style you can put in there. You can do judo if you want to, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, maybe. Was it Wing Chun? I think it's Wing Chun. The guy that like the Ip Man sort of fighting style, I think would be pretty cool. And if you can orchestrate that with some sort of mythology and creatures and whatnot, I would be completely on board with that. So yeah, give that to me. But I love your Toho and Toei collaboration. He says, so basically what you're saying, Adam, is the second Jungle Fury Geki Ranger as the next season theme. Yes.
Hmm.
And I would even say, um, have we had like a spy espionage since Ghostbusters? Because I would be up for
Nah.
another one of those. I
Yeah,
would be
another
up for
one of
another one
those
of
would be
those.
cool.
Yeah.
The idea of the drunken master though being like one of the Sentai Rangers, I'm curious if that was adapted to Power Rangers, how they would censor that, because you can have that kind of a theme in a kid show in Japan, but not in America. So I'm very
I just don't
curious
think
if
that
they
they
would
would. I don't think that they would refer to it as drunken style, man. I don't think they would refer to it as drunken style. Like
they would probably
they,
refer to it as Dizzy style or something.
yeah, exactly. They would definitely lighten it up for sure. And he would get himself ready by literally spinning around in circles before the fight.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
Or the teammates literally come up to him and everybody's just spinning him in a circle to activate his fighting ability.
I love it.
Blossom says, been thinking of getting into DC Marvel comic books since I grew up with how they were adapted into cartoons. Anything I need to know? Like, how do I start? Oh my God. Jeez. For me, I do think DC's current run of Dawn of DC has been a good jumping on point. I've enjoyed a lot of the stories. For some of them, I don't know how long the Dawn of the DC stuff has been going on. Something tells me like a year or so, maybe less than that. I could be wrong. So I don't know if that's a good time to kind of jump on board. Um, I think I almost feel like nowadays you have to wait for Marvel or DC to do like a reboot or a resetting of their stories before really kind of jumping back in. I do personally miss the legacy number storytelling, but I understand why they don't do it as much. It probably feels rather intimidating for for some people to just be thrusted into stories. But I would just say either at the beginning of a fresh reboot of like DC storytelling, like you usually have those big events. If you can jump in at like a big cataclysmic crossover event that will then reboot or restart things from an issue one, I say try and do that. So similar to that for both DC and Marvel. Or if you don't want to wait that long, I would say just jumping into any comic that you want that begins sort of a brand new story arc. Because most comic books these days will have sort of like I'm going to say a recap, but they'll give you a brief origin story intro and maybe where these characters have been as of late. So you can just jump back into sort of a brand new story arc. So that would probably be my advice. And then just find a local comic book store where, you got people there that are pretty knowledgeable about what's going on in the comic books to kind of help guide you.
I got a two-part answer, or two answers kind of. So my first answer is like a personal recommendation, even though these comic books are 20 years old, which holy crap, that makes me feel old. I definitely recommend the Jeff Johns run of Teen Titans. Because that was like my introduction to the world of DC, and it was perfect because you mentioned, growing up with the cartoons. I read the Jeff Johns Teen Titans because I loved the Teen Titans cartoon series, and then same with the Justice League comic books that were out at the time. I don't remember who was writing them, but I started reading them because again, I loved the Justice League cartoon that was out. So basically 2004 era of comic books, maybe a couple years earlier. That was my area of where I started. So that's where I would personally recommend. However, the other answer, the non-biased answer I would give you, is that start with any comic book run that looks cool, that you might be interested in, that's current. Try to see if you can find one that you can start from issue number 1 with, even if there's already a few more than just one issues out. And if you're ever confused, if you ever stumble upon something that makes no sense to you, or you stumble across a character who, the story acts like you should already know, the biggest benefit about getting into comic books now is that every character has a full Wikipedia page that will give you layers and layers of information. So I think that, like, just starting at issue 1 of a comic book franchise that you're, intrigued about, that's a great way to start. And then whenever you have questions, I think Googling it is honestly a really good way to be able to kind of, learn more about certain things. And even if you don't want to do that, if you just want to read the comic book and nothing else, I think most comic books, again, if you start from the earlier part of it, they usually do a good job of catching you up on everything that you've missed. A lot of comic book writers know that every comic book is someone's first. And so if you're starting with issue number 1, hopefully they know exactly how to, they know how to not confuse you, how to not intimidate you. And if they don't, that's more on the writer and that's not on you. So I'd say if you pick up a first issue and you're super confused, maybe try a different first issue then.
And I would also throw in too, you don't necessarily have to start in modern day right away. Like if
Yeah.
there's a particular character that you really enjoy and you've heard of important storylines or big moments for those characters, find out what issues that you need to pick up. Maybe if you want to go back to a particular creative writers or artist run, the beginning of a important story arc, maybe go back to some of the classic stories, and just get a nice refresher of reading comics and picking them up and learning about the characters a little bit more. And then when you feel confident, you feel a little bit more comfortable, then dive back into some of the more modern things as well. So just some tidbits of info there. And then last but not least, we got Johnny Marrero. Let's see if we can blitz through some of these questions here. With 3 zero figures of Zeo coming, what are the chances of Fig Zero figures of Omega Rangers, In Space Rangers, Draken Rangers, Dino Fury, and Cosmic Rangers coming to 3-0? Is that like a toy company? 3-0?
I'm assuming. I'm going to Google it right now real quick, because now I'm curious. 3-0. Apparently, there is one that's local in San Francisco.
Wow, those are some pretty badass figures, man. Those are really nice.
Oh, dang. And they have like actual, like, okay.
I would love the Omega Rangers and Draken Rangers. Easily, those would be my first choice. As far as how, what are the chances? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what their criteria is in regards to, like, this is what we want to create. This is the next group of Rangers that we want to. But I love the quality of them. Just looking at them, they look great.
Yeah. I love how on the website you can filter by price, and it goes from $0 to $24,200.
There's a Ranger Slayer in here that looks badass. Give me that all day, every day. I love me a Ranger Slayer, honestly. $69 on Amazon.com. So yeah, I don't know what the chances are, but if they've got a Ranger Slayer, it's probably pretty good that they don't mind dabbling into other themes. So I would expect some of these to become a possibility. If Power Rangers did a what if version, what do you want to see?
Ooh, there's a few that I would love to see. What if what if Venjix, or basically like, yeah, what if RPM took place in the Prime universe would probably be like my number one thing, because then you would have an excuse to see other Rangers, kind of like in a post-apocalyptic world, kind of similar to how we see in the Draken storyline in the comic books. So I'd love to see something like that.
Um, I two things I would love to see, and they're both of members Power Rangers who have died. What if Kendricks didn't die? I would
Mm.
love to see how that would have changed the story, not only for her but for Corone also. And then, um, what if Red Ranger Alex from Time Force at the beginning of that series? What if he didn't die also? How would that have
Ooh.
changed the circumstances that they would have found themselves in? So those are the two that come right off the bat. I mean, immediately two impactful deaths that really kind of formulated and set this the series in a certain direction, and really fates for some of these characters. I really would have loved to have seen what that would have been like. Probably the classic one. What if they never went to like the peace conference,
Conference.
right?
Yeah.
Something along those lines, maybe. What if Kimberly and Tommy never broke up? Um, yeah, I think there's a lot of great ones that you can tackle.
What if Rita succeeded in her plan in the most recent, special, and was actually able to kill the Power Rangers in their sleep?
I mean, that's a great, more current what if story for sure.
Hmm.
What if Legendary Battle never failed? I don't know. I'm just kidding.
What if
Um,
Megaforce wasn't disappointing?
And last but not least, do you still hope for Kimberly to become a Red Ranger in the near future for PR Boom Comics? Because honestly, I feel like they are leading up to that, to be quite honest. I haven't read Boom Comics in forever, so I don't really know what direction Kimberly is going. I'm assuming this is based off of maybe the story that she wrote. Is that what they're hinting at? Did you read that, or did you keep up with that, Stuart?
I am so behind on Power Rangers comic books, and I
Me
haven't
too.
even checked out Amy Jo Johnson's run yet, unfortunately. But I'd assume maybe that's where they're going with, especially with it being written by Amy Jo Johnson, but not sure. But regardless, from what I know of the show and from the comics that I have read, I could definitely see Kimberly being a really good Red Ranger.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, if it makes sense to the story, and I think the story that she's writing isn't that like I don't think that's connected to the overall story of what Boom Comics has created. I'm very much under the impression that that's its own like its own encapsulated story. Am I tripping? I don't know. I can't remember like how it fits into everything.
Yeah,
I
I
thought
think
that
it's
was like a what if almost.
Yeah, I think from what I understand, it's like it's a universe where the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers are the only team. So it is like its own like separated universe.
Okay, gotcha. So yeah, I wish we could answer that last question better for you, Johnny. But yeah, we haven't really kept up with Boom Comics as much as we probably should have. But yeah, let me refresh this page just to make sure I'm not missing any other comments. It's still saying 6 comments here. Let me sort this by newest. Okay, yeah, I think we got everybody's question in today. If I missed your question, guys, I certainly do apologize. But it looks like we got everybody. So thank you very much, everybody, for certainly participating with your comments throughout the show, with your questions for us at the end. We always appreciate bouncing these ideas and answering your questions for you guys. But that's going to do it for today's show. Again, wherever you guys are at, I don't know what the temperature is, but keep yourselves warm. I hope everybody had the opportunity to do some shopping and really have like a foundation in case things go crazy for you guys. Hope your internet and your power and everything stays up. Stay as warm as you can. Stay connected with your family members in case anything happens. And hopefully within the next couple of days, this weather will pass us by. Trying to think of content we have coming your way. Echo season review for you guys should be dropping from Indy here within the next couple days once his power is back up. I am going to be dropping a movie review for a Netflix film. We got some other projects that are certainly in the works in regards to some upcoming television series that are going to be dropping in January and in February. Also trying to assign some projects there as well. And yeah, we're always look. Also, I am going to put out this as well. I know only 2 people are watching right now, but we are, I would not mind adding additional content creators. If you go to the movies on a weekly basis, if you love the movies, if you find yourself always watching a movie, we would love a content creator here to do movie reviews for the channel as well. We still have our WrestleManiacs podcast that's attached here to A Plus Hero Report. You can definitely expect more wrestling content, certainly set to go ahead and happen. And yeah, if you have some ideas as a content creator, if you want to join A Plus Hero Report, we're certainly always welcoming with open arms and can definitely go ahead and put together some fresh content for you guys. So a lot of stuff always working here, but we appreciate you guys coming through each and every Sunday, and we definitely will be back next weekend for you guys as well. Stuart, if people want to find you on social media, where can they find you?
You guys can find me on Instagram at TurboStew01. And yeah. And of course, you can find me here on A Plus Hero Report.
And as always, you can definitely see us everywhere on social media, as you see down here at A Plus Opinions, almost everywhere. If you like your audio podcasts, we are available wherever you listen to your audio podcast, Apple Music, Spotify, wherever the case may be. You can find us there. We are currently as well on TikTok at Hero Report. Check us out there. And if you want to join us for more further in-depth conversation, we do have a forum community on Discord. There is a link in the description box below, so you can join us there as well. But if you haven't subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, guys. It definitely does go a long way. But that will do it for us today. We'll certainly see you next Sunday. But in the meantime, do us a big favor, as always, guys. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A+. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.